What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? I'm sitting here like waiting for 4:15, watching the little timer thing that's on this broadcast tool tick down, as if it mattered if I just decided to start the show like a minute or so early, so that I could jump in on the conversation between Po Degen Stoner and Matt Tomlinson in the chat. Pointing out that we're up to 301 subscribers on the channel. Really appreciate that from everybody who's here, obviously. Only 99,699 more subscribers to go till we get to the 100K mark. That's what we're shooting for here. So let's do that. And then from there, it's only a matter of time before we're at a million. Once we hit a million, we're at 8 million, 10 million. That's when the big bucks start rolling in from all the different subscribers and everything. Then we can plan a riot in Union Square in Manhattan. We'll be giving away things as influencers. It'll be great. It'll be a whole thing. But let's shoot for maybe like 500, before the World Series. I saw Po Degen Stoner said 1,000 before the World Series. That seems like wishful thinking. We're running short on time. Football's going to be starting. People are going to stop paying attention to baseball, to the same degrees that they're paying attention to it now. So that seems like wishful thinking, but you never know. These things build momentum, snowball rolling down a hill, and so on and so forth. But I do really appreciate all the subscriptions, all the likes, all the regular just coming here to hang out and shoot the shit and talk baseball with me every day. So it's all you guys. Really, really do appreciate it. Looks like we got a update. Raise Shane McClanahan not expected to pitch again this season. That was kind of seemed like it was in the cards. Wasn't overly surprising there. Interesting slate today. Got an 11 gamer. Lot to talk through. Lot of ins and outs. Interesting pitching slate with a couple premium options at the top, and then kind of a weird, fairly broad, but really shaky mid-ground, I think. I think any of the guys in the middle could potentially succeed, but a lot of them are sure to go bust on this slate. I think it is a slate that's a little bit more geared toward hitting, where we've got a bunch of good hitting opportunities with some of the best teams going up against some low-end starters. So I think it's a really interesting one to talk through. We've got some interesting players returning to action for the first time in a long time. So a lot of different stuff to talk through. Lemons50 says, blink twice if Crowder Crawford is a trap. We'll get to that one. I think that's in the third game overall, but we can start on the pitching board. That's been a fun place to start of late. So let me pop us over to the tool here. As everybody trickles in, we'll say hi to everybody, but we can start on the pitching breakdown. And given that he ranks here, I do kind of think Cutter Crawford is a little bit of a trap today. We'll talk about it in greater detail. I do think he's a talented pitcher. Obviously, going up against that KC lineup is a targetable spot, but in Fenway, it's not the greatest of opportunities matchups-wise, like given the ballpark, the wind blowing out situation of it all. KC comes in with a 4.3 run total, so it's not like they're completely off the board for the idea of run creation in Vegas or anything like that. There's a lot sharper spots for similar priced pitchers, as you can see, like up and down the board here. A lot of yellows and oranges up there, where Crawford's just like a yellow-orange price too. Like, for this price, he should be in this range projection-wise. It's only a couple of points. It's a fairly short board that's really top heavy, so we're only talking about a difference of like 5 points between here and here just in the mean projection, and he's got a similar ceiling to most of these guys. But I just don't love that spot, not nearly as much as it seems like some of the rest of the industry does, where I have liked Crawford in other spots this season, and we've talked about him, or I've written about him at least. So yeah, I do think that one's maybe a little bit trappy. Max at the top of my board, despite the struggles going up against Oakland. We'll get there eventually. Fromber is right there, 1-1A in my mind today. Coming off the no-hitter in the last game. A little bit tougher matchup against the Orioles, but just excellent upside. Oh, you guys know I love Fromber. Giolito with an interesting projection going up against the Giants. I do think there's major strikeout upside on the board for him. There's potential to pitch clean innings against that team. We've seen pitchers of less talent than Giolito succeed against that Giants team lately. Joker, go lie down, pal. Come on. Everybody knows you're here. They say hi. Joker's here. Kikuchi, Tanner Bybee. So I think it's these two on the reliable-ish top tier. Fromber's really probably like Mr. Reliable on his own. And then Scherzer's been up and down for the season, but there's not a better matchup in baseball than going up against those A's. Unless it's this guy at the uncomfortable, solid projection, Wade Miley, lefty, going up against those Colorado Rockies, who are by far, the Rockies against lefties is the most targetable situation for a pitcher, the worst offense in baseball, whichever way you want to put that. So I do think Miley's a realistic option. I like Miley better than I like Cutter Crawford for 600 less on DK, 400 more on FanDuel, but I like that spot a lot better. Then you get a solid mid-ground with like Gilbert, Keller, Urias. These three guys, any of them could potentially succeed. I doubt it's Keller, given the matchup against the Braves, but I do want to lump him in since he projects okay, and he does have upside beyond, that okay projection, but it's very thin. Bottom of the board, like, it really falls off after basically Clark Schmidt here, who is minimally playable, I think. Freeland, no. Taillon, no. Carrasco, no. Toussaint, no. Martinez, short start. Alex Wood coming in after as a bulk reliever. Brady Singer against the Red Sox in Fenway. Yoni Chirinos, Brandon Pfaadt. Really weak bottom end. So I think we're dealing with, like, a 13-pitcher slate, basically. A lot of these guys from, like, here-ish down look pretty similar. So that's what I meant when I said it's an interesting pitching slate to talk through. All of these guys are feeding opportunities to all of these teams, though. So there's a lot of potential offense on the board. So we'll get into the game by game. I think it's going to be an interesting one to talk through, but let me pull the chat back up real quick. We'll say hi to everybody who's trickled in. McClanahan, likely Tommy John, says Jake Swales. Yeah, that sucks. They also, the Mariners, just before the show, put Brian Wu, that excellent young rookie, on the IL with it just said forearm. It didn't say tightness, or it might have said soreness. But forearm is usually a big indicator that something's up with the elbow, which sucks because that kid was really good. Mamba says he didn't get a notification for the show today. I scheduled it the normal way, Mamba. I'm not sure what might have happened there. Anybody else not get a notification for today's show? Hope there's nothing I have to do. Something went on with when Elon changed Twitter and how you were allowed to embed it or whatever. For a while, it wasn't posting the Twitter feed on the website, and then now all of a sudden it's posting all the Twitter shots for like the last 3 days up there. I tried to change it yesterday. I tried to go into the site and change it and couldn't get it to change. It says only post 3 like it was before, but it's screwy. So hopefully it's nothing like that. Let's see who's in the chat, though. Let's see. So we said hi to Poe, DJ, and Stoner. We said hi to Matt. We've got Fanatic here. We've got Trey. We've got Larry. Dimitri's here. Dimitri had a decent night last night. It was one for just to kind of keep the lights on kind of a night, but looked like a decent result. Our pal, friend of the show, friend of the channel, J187, looked like he had another good night with his optimizer last night. Was leading the tournament for a while. And then it looked like it fell off by a couple points, but decently productive night for him. Hopefully some other folks out there had a good night, despite the ridiculous meltdown by Spencer Strider. Oof. We talked about not being too worried about his ERA, given the great xFIP, and the power was a little bit wonky, but man, that meltdown has me a little bit concerned. Hopefully some folks got to some of those Pirates bats. I think I had 3 or 4 shares. I ended up a little under, well under the field on Strider, a little under where I had planned to be, just given how he came up in projection. So his meltdown didn't completely cost me. But what killed me was I didn't get to enough Brewers. We talked about the Brewers being a great option yesterday. And when I look back, for whatever reason, I just didn't have enough of them. So that really cut my lineups down a lot last night. But hopefully somebody got there with some of the things we talked about. We've got Could Be Travis in the chat. We've got Lemons in the chat. Mamba's here. We said hi to Mamba. We said hi to Jake. Salty Old Man's in the chat. Dragons in the Brewer stack almost took it all down for him. Didn't really have enough of the right Braves besides Oddsy Albies. Damn, yeah. Cole Raggins. How about that one? That was not projected well, but if you remember yesterday, we were saying out of that group of the super cheap starters, he was the one I had the most upside, the most faith in. And man, I wasn't expecting anything near that. We also had Gav Williams with the dominant strikeout night against the Blue Jays. I might go back to that spot with Tanner Bybee, his teammate, tonight, and see if we can pick it off twice in a row. I like Bybee quite a bit. Williams is the higher-end prospect, and it's more realistic that he struck out that many, but that was his best performance so far in the show, and Bybee's been really good so far, so we'll get into it as we get there, but let's start with the top of the slate here. Maha took down the $3 on DK by 30. Nice. Trey says, I'll be honest, I'm worried about the Braves come pitching with Fried and Wright having to get back in form and Strider struggling. Yeah, it's going to be shaky for them going to the playoffs. I was surprised not to see them grab like a Lance Lynn type option off the top of the deck at the trade deadline. But they've got enough faith in Max and some of those guys coming back. And then I guess they're not probably at least before last night, just like me, weren't as worried about Strider, but that was an ugly one. Look, you're going to get ugly ones from time to time, but we're not expecting it from Strider all that frequently, particularly not against a low-end team like that. But anyway, let's talk Orioles. Let's talk Astros. Framber Valdez on the hill for the Astros, one of my favorite options in all of fantasy baseball when he pitches. 11,000, 10-8, put up the no-hitter last time out. We're not expecting exactly the same result, although it's in the cards. It wouldn't totally stun me. Not calling the back-to-back no-hitters, but like a deep 8-inning, 9-inning complete game type start with a very low total of hits, very low total of runs, no power to speak of on the other side, and a handful of strikeouts is always in the cards for Framber. 135 innings over 21 starts, one of the better options for depth in all of baseball. A 3.07 ERA with a 3.13 xFIP that nearly matches, up to a 26% strikeout rate on the season, and a nice comeback for his strikeouts. 3.6 degree average launch with a 2% home run rate, has been in the ones the last couple of years. Negative degree average launch angles each of the last couple of years. Just one of my favorite options when he pitches, and I'm happy to pay this price for him. Going up against a good Orioles lineup in Baltimore. Adley, Ryan Mountcastle, Anthony Santander, Austin Hayes, Gunnar Henderson off the top. All premium options, really, really good players. But Framber's just got that ability to keep the ball in the yard and really, really cut down any kind of home run upside. Doesn't really walk too many guys, doesn't get himself in any trouble. 6.1% walks, 1.07 whip. So really limited interest in anything Orioles. I think you can take a couple shares of Adley given his very low strikeout rate, very low walk rate. Going to put the ball in play. So he might grab a couple base hits, a couple extra base hits maybe ahead of Mountcastle. Maybe if anybody's going to get him, it's going to be Mountcastle or Santander with all their power. But even those two guys, 4.14 and 4.31 in the home run model. You can just see how much Framber cuts into the upside for power. So I do think there's major potential for him and just limited potential for them at the plate. Austin Hayes is a good play against most lefties, 3,400, 2,700. If you're going to Orioles stacks, he's very cheap in the cleanup role. He's been effective through most of the season. The power has been mostly out, but good average. Decent run creation mark at 111 for very cheap. Gunnar getting shots against lefties, had been struggling against lefties. Against weaker lefties, has put up a few good games in recent outings. It'll be interesting to see what he can do against Framber here, though. This is not all lefties are created equal, and Framber's an apex lefty. Jordan Westberg, 3,100, 2,600 from the right side, an effective player in his first 103 plate appearances in the show as a top prospect. But again, just a really bad matchup. Same story for Urias, McCann, and Jorge Mateo at the bottom of the lineup in descending order. Urias is decent for sneaky power for cheap prices, multi-position eligible on both sites. McCann has that track record of being good against lefties. I know I said it the other day and then he went out and had a monster game, but again, he hasn't been that guy in some time, and this is again a lefty among lefties, right? This is Framber is a unique creature on the mound. Jorge Mateo has been bad since like May 1st. Has 25 steals, had like 21 of them on May 1st. Has just completely cratered and is totally uninteresting. He's playable if you build a ton of Orioles stacks, but it's a really bad spot. It's not a good spot for hedging, just given what Framber's good at on the mound. If you want to attack a highly owned pitcher, I would say attack Max, given what he's done. Or maybe like Cutter Crawford if he's drawing ownership. Not that that's a really good spot. Grayson Rodriguez on the other side, kind of interesting. Not a good matchup by any means against the Astros, particularly the fully healthy Astros with Jose Altuve and Jordan Alvarez in the lineup, Alex Bregman, Kyle Tucker, Jainer Diaz. Bottom end with Jose Abreu, Jeremy Pena, Jake Myers, Martin Maldonado. Myers smoked the Yankees the other day with a double home run day, but overall not a great player. It's kind of a weak bottom four here. Maybe supports the idea of a little bit of upside for Rodriguez. What I like about Grayson, one of the top pitching projections in all of baseball for coming into the season. Let's start there. Had some good performances, some shaky performances, went back to the minors. He was struggling with premium contact and home runs, 9.9% barrels, 47.4% hard hits overall for the season, a 4.38% home run rate. But since coming back, he's actually been really strong over 4 starts since the beginning of July, since they brought him back up from the minors, from that trip down to the minors. He hasn't allowed a home run in that sample since July 17th. Struck out 6 twice. He struck out 4 twice. Allowed 4 runs to the Dodgers, 2 to the Rays in a 6 strikeout, 5 2/3 inning game. Shut out the Yankees over 6 1/3. Struck out 4 in that game, walked 2. And then he went 5 2/3 against the Blue Jays. Allowed 3 runs on 2 hits, struck out 6, walked 2. So some pretty effective starts against some pretty good ball clubs in that 4-game sample since he came back up. So I feel like whatever was going on, the best attribute in there is not allowing a home run to those four teams. Whatever was going on with the premium contact, I think he's figured out. The strikeouts will probably be up and down, and it's definitely a low strikeout opponent in the Astros. But there are some higher strikeout rates than the Astros have had in overtime in the back end of the lineup here. You just got to really navigate the stars. Kyle Tucker, Jordan Alvarez, Altuve, and Bregman. It's a really, really tough matchup for the kid, but he's priced at 6,900, 6,800. So anything about the matchup is cooked into this price. 25.6% strikeout rate over the course of the season. A 6.09 ERA is atrocious, but a 3.78 xFIP is the pitcher who this kid really is. So I think you can throw some darts at Grayson Rodriguez. It's not a great spot, but it's a value play. It's one that I think you can make on that short pitching slate. He projects in, given the cost offset, he vaults up probably in my esteem above some of those mid-range type guys. So I do think he's on the board. I definitely think that you should grab some Astros stacks. For every share of Grayson Rodriguez, you probably want to grab a share or two of the Astros on the other side of it. It's not a great matchup, and they've got a ton of potential against him. They're carrying a 4.25 run total. So that run total actually gives you an idea of what Vegas thinks of the kid. 4.25 for this team in this matchup is actually not all that high. So if you're going there, it's Altuve, it's Bregman, Alvarez obviously, and Kyle Tucker obviously with major shots for home run potential. And you can see a lot of the home runs still trickling through for that top five. Jainer Diaz has been really good, 3,600, 2,700, 14 homers, a 241 ISO, and 245 plate appearances. Working his way into the everyday lineup earlier in the season has not relented. But the bottom end is weak. Abreu's been at best up and down, and it was really, he was dead from August of last year to July of this year, and then kind of came back to life a little bit. So it's really through the top five if you're stacking, and then bolt on parts through the bottom end of the Astros lineup. If you're stacking Orioles, it's like I said, it's some of the top end, and then minor interest in some of the bolt-ons from the bottom. So really, it's all about pitching in this one. Fromber off the top, excellent option, one of the top two pitchers of the day. And then Grayson Rodriguez, an interesting mix-in for value. I will have some Astros stacks on the other side of that, though. I don't know how many Orioles stacks I get to. Fromber, Grayson, value darts, Astros bats, they're basically tied. Chuck Deuces says Santander. What about him? I don't see a comment that was tied to. No, let me know. Larry says ESPN is launching an ESPN bet with Penn Entertainment. Interesting. Makes sense that they would get in on that kind of a game. They're obviously looking to diversify, figure out what they're going to be in the next 20 years as content and TV and all of that kind of goes away or becomes something wildly different. Like they have catching up to do in the online space as far as their content goes. Dennis 4G's in the chat. What's up, Den? Salty Old Man says, good thing they average 6 runs a game. Are we talking about the Braves? Yeah. Figured. Yeah, they've been outrageous. They're an option on every slate. It's so annoying, like, putting together the tools, and it's just like any day they're on the slate, it's like, well, they're going to have the highest projection. I think they're 2 today. First for power, if I remember correctly. Oh, no, 5th for power. That's right. 5th for power against Mitch. 2 overall for projection. 1 overall for FanDuel points per dollar. 3rd overall for DK points per dollar for the Braves. Dodgers in the top spot against Brandon Pfaadt. Yankees in the top spot for home run upside against Touki Toussaint. A lot of that is carried by Judgy and Stanton, though. Anyway. And we're talking about the Braves and the Pirates, so we can get into this one. Let me see if we got the Pirates lineup. We did not. They were obviously frisky last night. We said they were minorly, playable in small doses. That's about what I had of them. I think I had 2 or 3 Pirates lineups. One of them was killing it early in the night, and then completely died off. But I think they're in a similar / much more playable spot. Like the ceiling overall is probably a little higher. They're still a low-end ball club, but there's a lot of interesting young bats for very, very cheap prices late in the lineup, and they're going up against Yonny Chirinos here. Chirinos, 71 1/3 over 6 starts, some relief appearances, 13% strikeout rate, a 4.42 ERA, a 5.15 xFIP, 3.33% home runs, plenty of premium contact available. I don't think we're going to Yonny Chirinos. It's 6,500, 5,800. He doesn't project out well. Bottom of the board projection. There's value plays on DK that I think work better for similar pricing. FanDuel, I just have no interest. I don't think I just don't see any reason to go to Chirinos here outside of just saying like, well, the Pirates are bad. Pirates rank 17th overall by collective fantasy point projections just because there's a lot of low-end projections in the lineup, but they rank 5th as a points per dollar play on DraftKings, which is definitely interesting. A lot of low-priced, interesting options here on the DK slate. 4,300 for Brian Reynolds leads the way, and then 34 for Jack Suwinski, 33 for Brian Hayes, and all the rookies priced in the 2s. Kind of like that. Think they're playable there. Basically everybody priced in the 2s on the FanDuel slate. Easy enough to get to. Reynolds is obviously their star player. 14 home runs, 9 steals this season, a 110 WRC plus in a down year for him. Still makes good contact, 11.8% barrels, 48.8% hard hits. That's in play against a guy like Yonny Chirinos, who's going to tee up a lot of power for them, a lot of contact in general available for them, and it's a matter of Reynolds getting the fat part of the bat on the ball. Jack Suwinski's great at that. 18.4% barrels, 48.6% hard hits, 21 home runs, a 119 WRC plus. He's been their best hitter this year in terms of power. 217, 338, 473. Not the best in terms of triple slash, but a decent walk rate, 14.4%, helps offset the 33% strikeout rate. Henry Davis, their best of the young rookies, 2,700, 2,800. 220, 312, 360 so far, only an 84 WRC plus, but 5 homers, 3 steals. And like I said the other day, what I like about it is, regardless of the run output, 8.8% barrels, 44.2% hard hits as over his first 170 plate appearances. I just want to see the premium contact continue from him, so I'm happy about that. Alfonso Rivas, a little bit productive in 35 plate appearances, very, very cheap at first base. Brian Hayes, up and down kind of low-end performer over his career, but should be better than he is. Very cheap, 3,300, 2,600 at third base. Good hard hit rate each of the last 2 years, just underperforms it. Andy Rodriguez, excellent barrel rate, excellent hard hit rate over his first 60 plate appearances. 2 homers on the board to show for it at 236 ISO. Very cheap source of potential power as a catcher. Liver Peguero, very cheap at shortstop. 3 homers now in 45 plate appearances at 256 ISO in the tiny irrelevant sample. But again, very cheap. Middle infield at both middle infield positions on both sites. And Alika Williams slots in at shortstop for the dead minimum on DK, 2,100 on FanDuel as a playable part, lower end prospect than everybody else, but has produced, as we saw the other day when we looked, some decent seasons for counting stats through the minors. So I think there are a lot of mix and match plays here. You can get to some shares of the Pirates, certainly more than we got to against Spencer Strider here going up against Chirinos. They don't rank as a great high-end points play, but there is a ceiling against Chirinos, and they're definitely value priced. So decent value option. The Braves, obviously, major source of expectation here. Like I said, second ranking by projection, excellent points per dollar rankings, excellent power rankings. Not quite the same where we saw all 6 of these guys above the magic number yesterday. Only Matty Olson getting there. Acuna hanging around that level. The rest of these guys have excellent power output against basically anybody. But Mitch Keller, 3.05% home runs this season, only 33.6% hard hits despite a 9.2% barrel rate. As usual with Mitch, there are things that are up, there are things that are down. He makes no sense. He pitches well, he pitches poorly. It's highly unpredictable. He looked like he had figured things out early in the season, then he kind of completely fell apart. Overall, the numbers aren't awful, but I just don't really want to roll the dice with Mitch Keller against these Braves all that often. The one attribute he has sustained over time is a decent ability to limit home run power. Not that that's going to fully play against the Braves. I would still say if you're making a bet on, like, you know, what are they going to land on between 0 and 5 home runs, I would probably say like 2 plus is probably still very much on the board, especially once you get into the bullpen here. But Keller projects okay, like mid-board okay projections. I just don't love that it's not a value price. Like, you don't really save anything by going to Mitch Keller. You're not really buying anything versus better options in much, much better spots for similar prices. You can throw a few darts at an okay projection in the mid-board, but I don't think he's much more than that against this Braves team. Everyday version of the Braves lineup, except for Travis d'Arnaud, in for Murph, which, as we talk about every time, doesn't really matter that much because he's cheaper. He's basically the same option. Darno's got 9 home runs and 181 plate appearances, 11.2% barrels, 40.8% hard hits. He is not Sean Murphy, but doesn't cost the same as Sean Murphy. 18 home runs and 400 and whatever plate appearances last year. Olsen, Riley, Albies, Ronnie Acuna working our way up the top of the lineup. They were nice on DraftKings, and they put all 3 of the other guys outside of Acuna below 6,000 so that it's a little bit easier to get to these guys after we talked about everybody being in the 6s yesterday. Ozuna, Rosario, Arcia, and Michael Harris, great price offsets toward the bottom of the lineup. On FanDuel, they're all priced in the 2s. On DK, they're all priced 45 or below. 45 for Darno, and then 43 for Ozuna is the next highest price. So good value at the bottom of this Braves lineup. All those players are very good, professional, full-time major leaguers. Ozuna and Rosario have been like B-plus caliber stars over their careers. 23 home runs and 16 home runs. There's nothing crazy about that output for those 2 players. They're just returning to form. 200-plus ISOs for both of those guys. Mediocre in terms of the hit tool, the on-base percentages. 107 WRC plus for Ozuna. Only a 95 for Rosario, but we're buying them for their home run potential. Arcia has been great. Harris has been very good. Harris has put to bed any worries about his struggles. He basically looks like the guy we had last year. 283, 329, 463, a 111 WRC plus. Arcia was an all-star. What's not to like about this squad? Ronnie Acuna from the top for 6,600, 4,800. It's a tough price, but 339, 421, 243 ISO. 339, 421, 582 with a 243 ISO, 68% better than average creating runs, 25 homers, 53 steals. He's amazing. So enthusiastic yes for the Braves bats. Handful of shares of the Pirates, decent mix in for value. A handful of Mitch Keller. It's a mid-range kind of a play. If he was like, nearer to 8,000 on DK, more in like the 82 to 8,500, nearer to 8,000, I guess is what I'm trying to say on FanDuel. I'd be a little bit more interested. It's just a deadly bad matchup for him, and he hasn't been consistent. He hasn't been reliable. A little bit of tournament upside, sure. Given probably very low ownership, given a still sturdy but not great strikeout rate, but strikeout potential. There's some opportunity for Keller to succeed, but the path is really thin in a spot that I don't think we need to go to. Oh, and then no interest in Johnny Chirinos. Royals and Red Sox. We talked about this one off the top. Let me grab the Royals lineup here. I will pull the chat back up in just a second. Make sure I'm keeping up with you guys. Getting with any changes. You guys are better at spotting the changes as they pop up than I am as we talk about all this stuff. So more eyes for you guys. Kenny Woodhouse. What's up, buddy? Says T. McBee. Throwback says broke even yesterday. Yerp. What's up, Throwbacks? Matt Tomlinson says Keller getting work lately. Yeah, I agree with that. Oh, Larry C says the Mets lineup changed. DJ Stewart out of the lineup. Abraham Almonte into the lineup. Interesting. Doesn't look like he's on the FanDuel slate. I'll change that. That game's coming up in a sec. Appreciate the heads up there, Larry. See what I mean about more eyeballs on those changes? Helps quite a bit. So Brady Singer, 7,400, 9,000. I think he's wildly overpriced on the FanDuel slate. 7,400. He's a dart throw in the extreme sense on the DK slate. Just going up against this Red Sox lineup in Fenway Park. I just don't see a lot of opportunity for him here. Was looking like a good pitcher last year. Took a major step back this season overall. Struggled out of the gate. He's made a couple decent starts. Let me pull it back up. I wrote about it hours and hours ago. Most recent start, he worked 8 innings of 3-hit shutout ball, struck out 4 against 26 Mets hitters. He hasn't given up a homer in 3 straight starts. The 2 starts prior to the outing against the Mets were strong strikeout performances, one of which was a quality start in which Singer worked 6 innings, allowed 2 runs, and struck out 9 Yankees. In the other start, he allowed 2 earned runs, struck out 10 of 24 hitters in 5 innings. So we know the Twins are bad for strikeouts. We know that the Yankees are just flat bad. The Mets have been up and down all season, but that's 3 straight decent starts. So if you need to hang your hat on something, it's on the fact that he was a good pitcher last year, and maybe this is a bit of a return to form in recent starts. But I don't want to game log hunt. I don't want to just look at those 3 starts when he's been so targetable overall this season. Last year he was very good. 3.23 ERA, a 3.30 xFIP, 24.2% strikeouts, a 5.6% walk rate, only allowed 2.9% home runs, kept the ball down pretty reliably each of the past 2 seasons. 7-degree average launch angle 2 years ago, 8.6 last year, 2.90% home run rate last year, 2.39% home run rate the year before. This year, that's 2.27% on 9.4 degrees of launch, 7.9% barrels, but a 50.5% hard hit rate gets concerning, 91.7 miles an hour of exit velo against a team like the Red Sox that can succeed with or without hitting the ball out of the yard. A lot of good batting average, a lot of good patience in this lineup, a lot of ability to get on base. Obviously, tons of power upside with several very, very good left-handed power hitters in the lineup. It's just a dicey spot for Singer shares. I see it much more as a spot to grab some Red Sox bats. They had the second highest implied run total behind the Braves on this slate at 5.53. Braves were at 5.58, so it's very, very close. Definitely the Red Sox are going up against the pitcher who's been weaker overall this season in a fairly friendly hitter environment here, given all the hard hits he's given up. I just think we're targeting some Brady Singer here with some Red Sox bats. So really like the spot for them. A lot of lefties in the lineup, starting with Jarren Duran, Masataka Yoshida off the top for very cheap prices on DK for those two hitters. Actually on both sites for DK and FanDuel. Got to catch up to Duran and Yoshida at the top of the lineup. 130 WRC plus over 329 plate appearances for Duran, 8 homers, 23 stolen bases, a 356 on base. Yoshida's been the Red Sox best player for long stretches of the season. 12 home runs, a 128 WRC plus, gets on base at a 364 clip, slashing 306, 364, 481. Why is he only 4,700, 3,200? Very cheap. Justin Turner very much in play. Second base only eligibility now on DraftKings, which sucks because the hidden story here. Oh, damn it, I did it. I was going to try and not say story when I'm bringing up Trevor Story, and I immediately walk right into it. But the buried lead here is the return of Trevor Story to the Red Sox lineup. He's also a second base only option on the DK slate, so you got to decide between him and Turner. You also get Luis Urias with second and third base eligibility, who becomes a decision point between those two and Rafael Devers. Story and Turner definitely a valid decision point. Trevor Story is a star caliber player. Put up most of his numbers over the course of his career in Coors Field, of course, while playing with the Rockies before coming to the Red Sox and kind of tanking last season in a bad season. Last year, 238, 303, 434 with 16 homers, 13 stolen bases, created runs exactly at league average in 396 plate appearances, and has been absent ever since. Coming back now, but he's, let's see. It's all in the article if you guys want to just read it, but with Colorado, 24 home runs, 20 stolen bases, but was below league average in 98 plate at 98 WRC plus over 585 plate appearances in 2021. In the COVID shortened year in 2020, he had 11 homers and 15 steals in 59 games, right on pace for what we expect from Trevor Story. 2018 and 2019 at ages 25 and 26. 2018, he hit 37 home runs and stole 27 bases while slashing 291, 348, 567 as a 25-year-old. And then as a 26-year-old, he went 35 homers, 23 stolen bases. He was excellent for most of his career. There's a bit of Coors Field in here, but we're talking about a guy who was a star caliber player for most of his career. Last season's blip was the only real problem. So I think we're really, really interesting with Trevor Story rejoining this lineup. Just another excellent piece for this Red Sox lineup that makes him much, much deeper. He's only 30 years old. He's obviously coming off a long, long absence. 5,200, 3,300. They drop him right back in at full price on the DK slate. 3,300 is a fair price on FanDuel, but I'm excited about the option. I hope he goes a little bit under-owned. He probably won't because it's a big story that he's returning to the team. Great matchup in a stack that's going to be wildly popular, but maybe it at least helps offset some of the ownership around a guy like Tristan Casas, who is ridiculously underpriced. 3,800, 2,800. He's sitting at 248, 351, 475 with a 122 WRC plus, a 226 ISO, 17 home runs, a 14.9% barrel rate, 47.3% hard hits, and a 13.9% walk rate for the entire season. Since we started talking about it, the first mention in the article that I could find that just expressly used the phrase second half in reference to Casas was exactly a month ago on July 7th. I said I expect a major second half from Casas, blah, 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 blah. I think I had said it a few times before that, but this is the only one that I can put a date on. Since that day, in exactly a month, Casas is slash 343, 435, 753 with a 1.189 OPS. That's one of the best OPSs in all of baseball. I think it's like him and Wilmer Flores, oddly, since the start of July, have the two best OPSs in baseball. He's got 8 home runs and 85 plate appearances in that sample. He has been murdering the baseball since the start of July. I don't understand why he's still so cheap, but take advantage. Major asset in Red Sox stacks. Way too cheap on both sides. Alex Verdugo is a great bat to find late in the lineup. 3,800, 3,000. He's down at 274, 346, 426, a 109 WRC plus. Still gets himself involved. A very good on base percentage. Only 8 home runs. Kind of a line drive. Not exactly a slap hitter, but like a line drive hitter. But definitely a guy who can be involved from the left side for cheap prices late in the lineup. Luis Urias, major power potential, double position eligibility on DK, triple position eligibility, only 2,200 on the FanDuel slate. Hasn't done anything this year, but has been a major source of power over the last 2 seasons. Reese McGuire, solid mix in at catcher, 2,600, 2,200. On the Royal side, going up against Cutter Crawford. So let's talk Crawford. 82 innings, 13 starts for Crawford, 24.6% strikeout rate, 5.8% walks, 4.14 xFIP behind a 3.62 ERA, 12.4% swinging, 1.09 whip, allowing a little bit too much premium contact with 8.8% barrels and a 3.65% home run rate. But overall, he's been pretty good. He just gets a lot of short starts. So he's got really like a 6-inning ceiling in most of his outings. He's had some 4-inning starts in there. He's had some short 5-inning starts. He's kind of a mixed bag of quality. 7,600, 7,900. I had to nudge the model upward a little bit from the innings that it wanted to give him. I felt like giving a short innings projection was a little unfair to him against the Royals here. So I gave him, this is only, I think, a 5-inning projection. Or did I go 5 or 5.5? Regardless, my model works on halves, not thirds, by the way. I think I've said that before. It's just easier to quantify or easier to just work with. But I gave him a reasonable start, and it only really pumped him up by a couple additional points. It moved him from like 19th to 12th in the rankings on a really tight board in that lower range. So I think he's just kind of an also-ran. 7,600, 7,900, it's perfectly fine to throw darts at. But if he's crazy popular, I don't know that I love it with the wind blowing out at Fenway Park. Just not a great hitting environment, not a great pitcher, an okay, serviceable pitcher. He could definitely go out there and have a great start against this lousy Royals lineup. If you were planning on playing 30 Cutter Crawford shares, don't necessarily let me talk you out of it. Just know that they're probably going to be popular. You're probably walking down the line with a lot of the public into what doesn't project like a great situation. But I do think there's a decent enough ceiling to get away with it. That said, Royals bats on the other side, if you're going there, Bobby Witt obviously is in basically every lineup, as is Sal Perez if you're stacking Royals. And then it's a real just mix and match situation up and down. I would probably include Michael Garcia from the leadoff spot just for correlation's sake. Cheap pricing, multi-position eligible on FanDuel. 17 steals, but a 90 WRC plus. Only Bobby Witt has an above average WRC plus now in this lineup. 20 homers, 32 steals. Superstar output, as I mentioned yesterday, and I sourced from like MLB or whoever. Witt at 2030 was the first player to ever go. Cutter's only 2.5% owned on FanDuel. That's surprising. Terry talks about Casas like Adam talks about Baltimore guys. Casas seems like he hits a home run every day. He's been great, dude. Casas has been absolutely just murdering the ball. And he's a premium, high-end prospect. Like, they expect a ton from that kid. So none of this is surprising. All of it is in line with his output from the minors. It's just he finally clicked. And you could see it in a lot of his numbers that were kind of tracking along the way. The other one that I've been calling for is Spencer Torkelson, who's also having a much quieter, decent season at the plate that I've talked about in articles and I think on shows. That's surprisingly low ownership for Crawford. So if he's that low owned, then I do think you can go to that spot a little bit, given the value pricing, given the great matchup against the Royals. If he's not highly owned, then it's not that big a trap. It might work out, might not. But if there's no ownership on it, then it's just a value play that may or may not work. So I was assuming high ownership on him all day. So if he's not, then then I take back what I said about it being a potential trap, which was cued by somebody in the chat. Damn it. Larry says Terry's easily distracted. Me? No. Why do you think these shows go 2 hours, Larry? So yeah, the Royals. Mike Massey, $2,600, 2,300 on at second base. A reasonable, okay lefty power stick. 9 home runs on the season, a 141 ISO, 70 WRC plus, 41.9% hard hits, 8.9% barrels. That's what we're chasing. 13% barrels in a small sample from last year. That's what we're chasing. MJ with his premium contact, lousy output for the excellent contact. I say it every time. 3,000, 2,700. He's on the board if you're going to Royal Stacks for sure. He would be probably my third highest priority in that stack, despite the lousy output. Edward Olivares, Matt Beattie, Drew Waters, Kyle Isbell. Beattie's potentially a little bit interesting at 2,100, 2,000 at the bottom of the lineup. Just a very cheap lefty bat to grab down there, but not a premium option by any means. He's a 30-year-old, I think. I'm thinking of the right guy, right? Yeah, 626 plate appearances over the course of his career at age 30. So he's not like a young kid just getting his first handful of opportunities or anything like that. He just sucks. Drew Waters, Kyle Isbell. It's a really, really low-end team. Little nudge to Cutter Crawford for being low-owned. Thanks for shouting that out. Let's move. Oh, so ranking it wise, it was tons of enthusiasm about the Red Sox stack. Cutter Crawford. Maybe a couple Brady Singer value darts on DK if you wanted to do it. But I really don't love it. I think it's pretty thin. He's got the talent to get there, but it's very thin. No real interest in Singer at 9,000 on the FanDuel slate. That's the path to success there is it's just misshapen, right? And with him at that price, he doesn't just have to succeed and put up a decent game. He's got to put up a really good game that's competitive with the best pitchers on the slate for that price. So I just don't really like Singer at that number on FanDuel. Blue Jays, Guardians. God damn it, we've got to play Yusei Kikuchi again. I hate it. He projects pretty well. 28.69 in the FanDuel, scoring 8,200 on DK. Definitely makes him a value option. 92 on FanDuel. I think he's on the board. As I've talked about every time we bring him up, I prefer opportunities where I can target him with bats, given his ridiculous home run problems over the last few seasons. 4.55% home runs this year, 5.07 last year, 4.05 the year before, 11% barrels in 21, 14.8% barrels was just completely absurd in 22, down to 9.5 this year, still 43.1% hard hits, 90 plus miles an hour of exit velo, plenty of home run upside on the board, but you're going up against the Guardians team that doesn't really hit many of them, has one of their best players out of the lineup in Josh Naylor, really only has 2 home run threats in the lineup. Maybe, 2 plus if you include Gabriel Arias on the rare instances that he makes any kind of contact. It's a really low-end version of the Guardians lineup here. They've been bad all season against lefties. There's tons and tons of upside on the table for Yusei Kikuchi. Even if he gives up a home run here, I do think he could have a good game. The one thing the Guardians are going to do well is potentially limit the strikeouts, but he's an effective strikeout pitcher. For all his flaws, 24.6% strikeouts this year, 27.3% last year, 24.5% the year before. Walks too many, might feed some additional opportunities in their direction, but I do think there's believable upside given that the Guardians are just so inept at the plate for most of the season outside of avoiding the strikeouts. If you want to go to Guardians, if you want to target the Kikuchi home run problems, which I do think in a handful of stacks is probably worth doing a little bit. There's a couple decent home run marks here. I would definitely make Jose Ramirez a major priority in those stacks. He's obviously their star player, 18 homers, 16 steals, appealing his suspension, so he'll be in the game today, as I think Tim Anderson will as well. 209 ISO, a 129 WRC plus, 18 homers, 16 steals. It's kind of a not totally dead season, not by any means dead, not totally down season for him. 18 homers, he could get to 29 by the end of the season. He'll probably get to the 20 steals that he put up from last season, but it's not like super duper star output from Jose Ramirez this year. 36 homers, 27 steals 2 years ago was better. I don't think he's got the upside to that this year. He'd have to double his home run total in the last 2 months. He could do, but doesn't seem likely to. So you're paying a premium at 5,500, 3,900. I think he's perfectly fine. I think he's a priority in stacks, but it's not ideal overall. Definitely your most likely home run hitter in that lineup, though. Oscar Gonzalez, a little bit of power from the right side of the plate. 11 home runs in 382 plate appearances last year. I just realized I had this. I have to shrink this back down. Gonzalez is cheap, 2,700, 2,100. Handful of home runs over the last couple of seasons. Done nothing at the plate this year. Laureano, 2,800, 2,000. We know he's like a mid-range power, mid-range stolen bases guy over the course of a full season. Very low end output, 213, 280, 364, and 83 WRC plus on this slate. It's just not great. Over 246 plate appearances. Again, though, very, very cheap. Dead minimum price for a veteran who we have seen succeed in spots over time. You can include Ramon Laureano from the 5th spot in the lineup. Brian Rocchio and Gabe Arias, a little bit of upside from the two young players, 2,300, 2,100, and 2,600, 2,100 across sites. Triple position eligibility from Arias is interesting. 5 home runs and 200 plate appearances. Just a very infrequent contactor of the ball. But when he does make contact, he drives the ball pretty well. Bo Naylor, a little bit of catcher upside with power, 3,000, 2,500, 4 homers and 104 plate appearances. Josh Naylor's brother, if you're looking for a Naylor to include in your Guardian stacks, that's the only one you get today. Stephen Kwan, 101 WRC plus, back down to a 343 on base. I've talked many times about him needing to be in the 370 range to provide value as far as on base goes. And Andres Jimenez has been up and down, but does have good mid-range power, good mid-range steals. So if I'm stacking Guardians, it's probably Jose Ramirez, Andres Jimenez as my two like major priorities. And then I would go one of Oscar Gonzalez, Ramon Laureano, or Stephen Kwan, depending on whether you're looking for the power output or whether you want just the correlated scoring and on-base option from up top. And then I'm probably looking to like bolt in Rocchio and Arias for cheap down there. Or on DK, maybe you go to Bo Naylor. But it's just like a mix and match quality lineup. They're pretty bad. Against lefties, they're pretty bad. Not a great spot. Dimitri says Kikuchi has me nervous. It's justifiably nervous, man. He has... I gave up 3 home runs and came out of the game after 5 innings of lousy baseball downside on basically any given slate. Hitting weather in Fenway based on historical plus park is the best on the slate. Plus 14% runs and 9% home run average, says Chuck Deuces. Yeah, I mean, it's a great hitting environment in Fenway tonight. So that's one of the reasons I was saying, like, even if Singer had a good game, there's probably still going to get to him. It's one of the reasons that Crawford was cut down a little bit in the model, and then just that elite Red Sox offense getting Trevor Story back too. Roof open Milwaukee with plus weather. That's another good spot, I think, for upside potential, although we'll talk about the pitcher when we get there. So this one, oh, if you're going to, I didn't talk Tanner Bybee or Blue Jays bats. So I did say that I want to go back to the spot for not given what Gavin Williams did, but because Tanner Bybee is a good pitcher who projects fairly well, albeit at a high price. I do want to go back to the Guardians pitcher against this Blue Jays team where we just saw Gav Williams succeed in a major, major way last night. I do think there's similar upside for Tanner Bybee, maybe not 12 strikeouts on the board, but he's been effective, 23.9% strikeout rate, a 3.14 ERA, 4.3 xFIP is probably the more honest of the two numbers, walking 8.8%, limiting home runs to 2.52% on 6.1% barrels. He's just been an outstanding rookie pitcher. He projects pretty well. This is a believable mid-range projection for him. I think he's got a good ceiling against the Blue Jays. They've been up and down. Whit Merrifield, Brandon Belt, Vladdy Guerrero, George Springer. Underperforming version of George Springer, only at 99 WRC+, plus, 13 homers, 14 steals. Vladdy underperforming his power output despite great contact profile. Those two players are very cheap for their talents, though, so I do think you want to both sides it with some stacks of Blue Jays if you roster a lot of Tanner Bybee. Grab a little hedge position around Guerrero, Springer. Merrifield's been excellent off the top, 112 WRC+. plus. Brandon Belt's been better with a 130 WRC+, plus, a 200 ISO, 10 homers, and excellent contact profile. Strikes out 34.7% of the time, but offsets it with a 15.4% walk rate. He is the ideal three true outcomes hitter right now. He's even hitting for a little bit of average at 254. But he's got a 15.4% walk rate, all those strikeouts, 10 home runs, a 370 on base. I mean, just an excellent player for 3,100, 2,900 at first base. Sucks you got to decide between him and Vladdy still. They got to figure that out on DK. Dalton Varsho climbing the lineup a little bit, 3,400, 2,500, power and speed. Has had a down season overall, but definitely has the upside for a decent game here. Danny Jansen, 9.88 in the home run model, 15 homers and 252 plate appearances. Obviously a good source of catcher power for just 3,200. He's as good a home run hitter at catcher as many of the more expensive catcher options on this slate, like the I don't remember what Darno's price was, but I think he was even more than this. Or like if Sean Murphy was there, or like let's say Will Smith from the Dodgers. Danny Jensen's a sneaky, interesting catcher here. Kevin Biggio, Santiago Espinal, kind of lower end options at the bottom of the lineup. Multi-position on both, cheap prices on both. Capable of putting the ball in play and making a little noise. Paul DeJong, cheap. 13 home runs as a veteran, 329 plate appearances. Not a great option at the bottom of the lineup, but a little bit of sneaky power. Chuck says Tukey might be viable tonight. Oof, now we're getting dicey. I like that spot for the Yanks. Granted, I had too much Yankees last night and it didn't work out for me. Granted, they suck. I just really don't have all that much faith in Tukey in general. But we'll get there. He's had his spots. So, Tanner Bybee. Yusei Kikuchi with a bullet. Tanner Bybee. Blue Jay stacks as a hedge position. And Guardian stacks, honestly, as a hedge position as well. So, like, low-end interest in the stacks. Blue Jay is well above the Guardians just on general talent. Guardians is a value hedge position against Kikuchi shares. So, it's kind of a four corners game. I don't know that I love any of the four corners. It's one of those, like, take it or leave it. You could have all of it. You could have none of it kind of ones. If you told me you had no Kikuchi because you have no faith in him and the Guardians don't strike out that much, I wouldn't call you totally nuts. Cubbies. Metsies. Larry says Tukey doesn't look that bad. One of these low-priced pitchers is going to go off. I do agree that one of these low-priced pitchers is in play. I don't know that it's Tukey. I don't know that it's either of the guys in this game. I think I want to target bats in this one. Jamison Taillon, 6,700, 8,600, just overpriced on FanDuel. A mix-in value at best on the DK slate, given a 20% strikeout rate. 5.36 ERA is bad. 4.75 xFIP is better, but still bad. Too much premium contact at 10.3% barrels, 3.69% home runs. Doesn't really play for me. Upside to like a league average pitcher. So maybe he has an okay performance here against the Mets. But I'm seeing power for the Mets stars. I'm seeing some good marks for some of these other Mets hitters. Mark Vientos in the lineup is a sneaky power bat late. Omar Narvaez has a little bit of catcher. He's obviously not Francisco Alvarez. So maybe a little downgrade for lack of Francisco Alvarez. There's no Brett Beatty in the lineup anymore. They sent him back to AAA yesterday. You get Abraham Almonte in there at 2,100. A lot of cheap prices for the Mets down through the bottom of the lineup. Narvaez is not an untalented catcher at 2,300 on the DK slate. He's got a little bit of lefty pop in his bat. It's like Vientos for 2,200, Narvaez for 23. Grab those two guys and then stack Nimmo, Lindor, and Alonso. What does that cost you on DK? That's an average of 3,800, a total of 19,000 for a five-man stack against Jamison Taillon in a good hitting environment on this slate. Like I think there's a good amount of value here for the Mets. On the other side, you can definitely throw Cubs bats at Carlos Carrasco. 14.9% strikeout rate for him on the season, a 6.60 ERA, a 5.13 xFIP, 9.5% walks, giving up a 4.30% home run rate. Tons and tons of premium contact against a team that is just excellent at waiting pitchers out, drawing walks, getting on base. I love this spot for the Chicago Cubs. It's a excellent opportunity for them. Carrasco, over his last handful of starts, has been brutal. 21 earned runs over his last 4 starts. Has been bad all season, as the season-long numbers indicate, but that's a particularly lousy stretch. It's technically over his last 5 starts because he had a weird 8-inning, 3-hit shutout against the Diamondbacks at the beginning of July. But that was a total outlier for his season. He has been bad all year long. So I expect a good opportunity for the Cubs. They're at a 5.10 total. The Mets are at a 4.5 implied total. Those might actually have gone up since I wrote the article earlier. So definitely an opportunity for bats on both sides. Cubbies lineup, Mike Tauchman, been very, very good for them. Started out the year as describing him as like a mixing quad A player, playing over his head, blah, blah, blah. And he's just sustained it. He found a home at the top of this lineup. He's 32 years old. He is a career journeyman, a career, pretty good at defense, decent time to time kind of a bat. This season, over 161 plate appearances, so still only like a moderate sample. A 133 WRC plus in the leadoff role, a 296, 366, 493 triple slash, just a 19.3% strikeout rate, and a 9.9% walk rate in 161 out of the leadoff role exclusively. So Just an excellent season overall for him. 368 on base overall, 119 WRC plus overall, 6 homers, 5 steals, 278. He's been very, very good. Good correlation play that I like better than Nico Hoerner from the top of their lineup. Hoerner does have speed, 27 steals, 99 WRC plus. DK listened to us and lowered his price by $300. Probably still not low enough. 3,500, at least you get multi-position eligibility. He's not a non-option by any means off the top of the Chicago lineup. If he gets on base, he's running. He's correlating with these other guys. He does have a 331 on base. That just needs to be a little bit higher, or his pricing needs to be a little bit lower still. But he's a viable option from the second spot in the lineup. This is really my favorite part of this lineup. As I say every day, it's basically the heart of this lineup, and then you can bolt on either of these guys, and you can bolt on John Gomes, Nick Madrigal, not much of a bolt-on. But this part of the lineup is great. I really like these guys. They're very cheap. Dual position eligibility for 3 of the guys and in the 5-man group there on DK. Triple position eligibility for Chris Morel. Dual position eligibility for Cody Bellinger. All at cheap prices or fair prices when it comes to Bellinger. Excellent ability to get on base. Good power through all those guys. That's an average of 16 home runs for that group. Some speed. The on-base average. The average on-base percentage in that group of very good hitters is .359 this season. They all create runs well above average. It's just an excellent group of hitters. Everybody gets on base. Everybody does a little bit of everything. Dansby's got his power back on track with 17 home runs on the season, a 191 ISO. Has a shot, realistically, to get to that 25 home run output that we expect from Dansby Swanson after kind of a slow start. Still 13.4% barrels, 41.3% hard hits. Only 4,400, 3,200, one of the more underappreciated shortstops in the game over the last handful of seasons. Ian Happ, excellent, very cheap, 3,400, 3,300, 13 homers, 9 steals, a 374 on base percentage. I realize I'm clicking on the wrong line. A 374 on base percentage, 19% better than an average creating runs. He is way, way too cheap for a guy who gets on base and correlates that well with guys like Cody Bellinger, Swanson, Heimer Candelario, who's in this lineup, has eligibility at first and third now for only 4,000. Third baseman for 3,300 on the FanDuel slate. 272, 356, 499, 17 home runs. Pulled himself together enough for the season that he got himself traded to a much better team. He was with Washington for most of those numbers. He's an excellent option late in this lineup. Chris Morel, 4,800, 3,600. Arguably a little cheap for his power potential on the DK slate. 15.2% barrels, 49.7% hard hits. We know most of these home runs came in that first major rush of the season that he had, but there's plenty of power upside that's very realistic for Chris Morel on the right night. John Gomes, 3,200, 2,700, 9 home runs on the season and 280 plate appearances, 8.2% barrels this year. He's a realistic power hitter as a catcher. Had 8 and 293 last year, 14 and 375 the year before. Where you need catchers for 3,200, Gomes is definitely in play. For 2,700 on FanDuel, you can mix him into stacks. Major opportunity for the Cubbies. Very good opportunity for the Mets. Love the power potential for Francisco Lindor. Pete Alonso, 15.41. How about Pete Alonso yesterday for one of the top spots in the home run model? Just absolutely mashed. 33 home runs on the season, a 295 ISO. Rumors of his demise were greatly exaggerated, I think by Joel Sherman specifically in the New York Post. I keep referring to that article, but it drove me bananas. Like 4 days after Alonso came back from the injured list, he was like, "Oh my God, he doesn't look like the same guy. What a tragic, terrible season for Pete Alonso." And meanwhile, he looks very much like Pete Alonso. Lindor, up to 22 home runs, 18 steals, a 123 WRC plus, a 227 ISO. I don't really care that he's only hitting 246. It just doesn't really matter for DFS purposes. This is very much a Francisco Lindor season. 11.5% barrels, 46.1% hard hits. Perfectly viable, and he's discounted for 4,800, 3,700 for Francisco Lindor at shortstop. Discounted on DK anyway. Little cheap on FanDuel. These two players in most of your Met stacks. Brandon Nimmo goes into most of your Met stacks at 254, 351, 427, 20% better than average creating runs, 15 homers, a stout contact profile for the outfielder. Jeff McNeil, you can take or leave. He's a bolt-on part for cheap, second base and outfield. Vientos, I mentioned the power. I just realized before that I talked about the bottom of the Mets lineup, but not really the top. So, tough call. It's bats. I don't want to use either one of these pitchers. I'll say Cubbies, Mets. I like the Cubs better. I think it's a better opportunity against Carrasco. Taillon's got a little bit more realistic upside. But bats on both sides. Neither of the pitchers, in my mind. Power says JP Sears doesn't look bad. That's a tough spot. I do think he's a good pitcher. We'll get there. It's just a brutal matchup. I don't love the Sears play. He's on the board. He's in that same value range as some of those other dudes, but I don't love it. Value play that I do like quite a bit is Wade Miley. How scary is that? Projects out okay. Not a good pitcher by any means. Veteran, like innings eater type guy with a left-handed arm, so he'll stick around baseball for as long as he wants to. 71 2/3 this year with 14 starts, only a 17.5% strikeout rate, a 3.01 ERA, but a much more realistic 4.68 xFIP. Doesn't get burnt too much by premium contact. 34.6% hard hits, 88 miles an hour of exit velo, a 2.75% home run rate. Obviously not a comfortable pitcher to roster. Doesn't induce any swinging strikes. Doesn't throw enough strikes. 1.16 whip is good. Doesn't kill himself with free passes. He's been basically the same guy over time. Only 37 innings, 8 starts last year. Essentially the same guy. Year before, 18.1% strikeouts, 7.2% walks, 3.37 ERA, a better 4.07 xFIP that we can maybe rely on a little bit for upside. The strikeouts were a little bit higher in 163 innings that year. Similarly good at limiting contact, limiting home runs, limiting premium power. So given the fact that Colorado is like the worst baseball team I've ever seen when they're facing a left-handed pitcher, there's potential here for a guy as bad as Wade Miley. I said it the other day that we were going to just throw left-handed pitching at this Colorado Rockies team for better or worse for the rest of the season. And boy, we're putting that to the test right out of the gate here. Looking at the numbers, though, Colorado's active roster ranks dead last, 30th in baseball with a 56 collective WRC plus against lefties. That means as a team, they're 44% worse than average on the average at creating runs against left-handed pitching. They have a league worst 31.4 percent collective strikeout rate against lefties. 31.4 as a team against lefties as an active roster. They have a 139 ISO in the split that ranks 26th in baseball. They're bad. They have a 3.49 run implied team total against Wade Miley. They're bad. This is an okay spot for Wade Miley. I almost said it's a good spot. I want to stop short of that. I do actually think that it's a good spot. I just don't want to oversell Wade Miley too much because he's Wade Miley. League average-ish upside. Like upside ceiling as a league average type pitcher. But if we had a ceiling of a league average pitcher and he came out and had like a decent day as a league average pitcher against the worst team in baseball against the lefty as an average lefty, that all kind of maths out okay in my head. Comes up to about this kind of a projection. A little bit of ceiling there. I think Wade Miley's on the board given his value pricing. I like it better as a $7,000 SP2 on DK. 8,300, he's definitely on the board, but he could be a little bit cheaper for our purposes on FanDuel. But he's definitely playable. He's definitely going to be low owned. Embrace the chaos. That's all I can say. That's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to have some Wade Miley here. I do think that if you're going to extreme values, if you need a cheaper pitcher, the guy we talked about in that first game, Grayson Rodriguez, has a little bit of upside for an even cheaper price on that FanDuel slate. I built a lineup and I was like, well, can't quite fit Miley, but I bet I could go to Grayson Rodriguez. And then I had way too much money to spend. So I figured it out. But yeah, an interesting slate value pitcher wise. This is going to be ugly. This is going to be, as Larry said, I think it was Larry in the chat. It's definitely going to be a zero Colorado lineup changed. Did you, is that a typo, Larry? Did you mean to say changes? Zero Colorado lineup changes or zero Colorado lineup changed? I assume changes. Trey, Colorado darts with Miley ownership. Is Miley super popular? Last I saw he wasn't. Maybe on DK. If he's super popular, then you can always throw darts at it. We'll talk it through. There is that idea of some right-handed power. He's across town. His ownership doubled since earlier in the day on the FanDuel slate, but that still only puts him at less than 5%, let's say. Way less than 5%. DK ownership across town's probably higher, I assume. $10+, but not tragic. I don't know that it's a spot where I necessarily want to attack it. That's not really, like if he was pulling like 30-something% ownership, then sure. Or if somewhere else hasn't projected in that range, then sure. But it's a really low-end underperforming team. I just, now that I'm going to talk it through again, I want to make sure I have the right version of the lineup. No Brendan Rodgers in it. Okay. All right, let me grab it here. So Brendan Rodgers takes out one of the quality right-handed bats. So that's actually a downgrade to a already bad stack. So, yeah. Profar, Tovar, no. McMahon, no, not really against lefties. I do frequently say, like, there are lefties and there are lefties, and Miley is in the worst of those two groups. Let me pull up McMahon's lefty-lefty splits. I'll do the same for Jones. Then we'll hit the gas pedal after this game because it's 5:20. Lefty-lefty this season, Ryan McMahon, 3 of his home runs, a 198, 276, 331 triple slash with a 132 ISO and a 52 WRC plus. Yeah, Ryan McMahon really suffers against lefties. Loses like all his quality. That's why one of the main reasons this team is so bad against lefties. Jones, it'll be a small sample. I do like Jones for his power upside on the other side of splits. What's he done against lefties? All right, Jones is on the board. 3 of his home runs, 3 of his 9 home runs, a 288, 344, 475 with a 186 ISO, 107 WRC plus in 65 plate appearances. I don't think I can get his minor league splits here. Yeah, minor league splits not easy to come by here, but Jones potentially in play. Like if I was building Rocky stacks, I would probably straight line it from Jones. Trejo's in the way though. Ugh, God, that's bad. Diaz, Jones, Montero, Toglia, and Doyle are probably the most interesting bats in that lineup, is what I'm trying to say. And that's not good. When you're dealing with exclusively the bottom end, it's not great. Profar and Tovar are mix and match options, obviously up top. Either one of them could knock one out of the park, steal you a base, but 76 and 72 WRC plus, 7 homers, 11 homers, 1 steal, 5 steals in 843 combined plate appearances. It's pretty low end. You're dealing with a really thin situation. It is Wade Miley. I mean, there's going to be contact available. They're going to have the opportunity to drive the ball. So you're looking for like a couple of these two to get on base. Nolan Jones hits you a home run. And then like Montero and Toglia both followed up with solo shots. That's how you're getting your upside out of the Rockies today. Montero and Toglia do have believable young right-handed power from the minor leagues. So we've talked about it a bunch of times recently. Very, very cheap, but I don't love it even as a hedge position unless Miley is dramatically higher owned than he's projected for on the site that I'm looking at. And that's on DK. By the way, Cutter Crawford on that site is the 3rd most highly owned pitcher as an SP2. It's basically the one obvious guy drawing like, approaching 50% ownership, and then everybody else in the teens. But Cutter Crawford falls 3rd in their projections over there for DK ownership. So back to maybe a little trappy around Cutter Crawford. But I like Cutter Crawford quite a bit better than I like the Rockies stack here, or than I like Kyle Freeland here. Freeland not on the board, 5,900, 6,600. I think he's just a target here. 113 innings, 14.6% strikeout rate, a 4.86 ERA, a 5.22 xFIP, giving up 9.1% barrels, 42.7% hard hits, 90.1 miles an hour of exit velo, and a 4.05% home run rate. I think that's going to play pretty well for the Brewers' power potential at the plate here. Do we get the Milwaukee lineup? Doesn't look like it. Let me see what's going on in the 75% on DK? No. Where's that source from? Trey? That's bonkers if somebody has it there. Interesting. So we've got some interesting ownership projection discrepancies around the industry. My gut would be Cutter Crawford is the higher owned of those two. Nobody really believes in Miley, even against Colorado. Crawford's got a better strikeout potential. Everybody is going to want to target that Royals team. My gut is that Crawford goes as the more highly owned of those two. But it'll be interesting to watch. That's a interesting discrepancy site to site, and kind of a key play for the industry. Yeah, Miley is super low on FanDuel Fanatic, and I quite like the spot at 8,300. I think he's a strong value. I go to those pitchers all the time on FanDuel. I think it's very in play. Low end strikeout opportunity, obviously, but 6 innings, 6 clean innings is on the table. Decent amount of strikeouts for being Wade Miley is on the table. Win bonus, quality start bonus, obviously very in play given the Brewers upside here. Speaking of the Brewers upside, what about that game last night after we talked about them? Holy hell. Like I said, the one thing that killed me was that I didn't have enough of them. I had like 3 Brewers lineups or 5 Brewers lineups or something like that after I built and sorted. I was pissed. As soon as I saw their output, I was like, oh, God, this has to be a good day. Nope. Anyway, Tyrone Taylor had a good day at the plate after we talked about him as a sneaky power option. 104 plate appearances, up to 4 home runs, 6 steals. Only a 38 WRC plus. Probably remain a little bit sneaky at 2,900, 2,300. Mark Canha, playable veteran part for cheap in the middle of the lineup. Andrew Monasterio has been above average for run creation over 154, but kind of a limited, hit, a little bit of speed, kind of an infielder. Bryce Turang, a little bit of hit, a little bit of speed. Nothing really to write home about. Over 296 plate appearances, 14 steals, 6 home runs, 25% worse than average creating runs. Joey Wiemer, if we get him back in the lineup, good counting stats. Infrequent contributor, but good counting stats. 13 homers, 11 steals, and 364. 83 WRC plus, though. Christian Yelich is a star off the top. Didn't deliver the home run for us yesterday, but definitely had a very good game. Like I talked about with him, he might not hit I think I said exactly, he might not hit the home run, but he might have a very good DFS game anyway. And I think that's what he went out and did. 290, 376, 473, 183 ISO, 31% better than average creating runs. Gets involved in everything they do. Hits the ball very, very hard. Walks at a decent clip. Nothing to dislike about Christian Yelich. Even the price, 5,100, 3,700, it's a great price. William Contreras, good catcher bat, hitting second, gives him a little bit of additional value, up to 281, 351, 452. Good home run upside. Carlos Santana, great home run upside, 3,700, 2,900. 14 homers on the season and a 92 WRC plus. 79 WRC plus for Willy Adames. Out of the lineup last night. Struggles to do anything other than hit for power. It's infrequent, but when he connects, the ball travels. 17 home runs in 443 plate appearances, 12.5% barrels. 201, 286, 376 is bad. 79 WRC plus is bad. But there's major home run upside. It seemed like you just really needed Peralta last night on FanDuel, says Greg. I had a good amount of Peralta. Not as much as I probably should have had. When I first ran my sort, it sorted Strider way, way down. Gave me a few extra handfuls of Peralta. Somebody else was way up there. And then I reconfigured a couple things to get to some additional Strider shares, but not crazy amount. And then I had to give it a little kick to get to the value shares on on Raggins that I wanted. Obviously ended up not getting enough of him either. That would have been a killer value spot. But yeah, Peralta, great start last night. Watch out for these Brewers, man. That pitching staff is back in order. Their bullpen is really good. They've got like an average-ish lineup, but there's enough. They're just one of those teams that could like string together some stuff as time goes on. A lot of the numbers for this team don't look good, but I do think there are a lot of interesting playable parts. Kind of an interesting team for the last 2 months here. Chuck says he needed Alonso, Turang, and Frelick. Oh, yeah, that's what you needed in your lineups. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and the few Brewer stacks that I got to didn't have both Turang and Frelick in it. Had a lot of Alonso, given how he tracked on the home run board. So this was enthusiasm about the Brewers against Kyle Freeland. Total lack of enthusiasm, but definitely going to go to it again with Wade Miley, given how he projects and how bad the Rockies are against lefties. Excellent value option on the DK slate. Strong value option on the FanDuel slate. Rockies bats, no. Kyle Freeland, no. Minor hedge position with cheap Rockies if you want to do it. Basically from Nolan Jones through Brenton Doyle without Alan Trejo. Or from Elias Diaz, really. Elias Diaz, Nolan Jones, Eleodoro Montero, Michael Toglia, Brenton Doyle. You could certainly go to Ryan McMahon instead of Brenton Doyle at the top of the lineup and just hope for the best, even the lefty-lefty. Let's keep this show on the road here. Actually, we're making okay time. Only a handful of games to talk about. And it's 5:28. Let's see if we got the Yankees lineup. I think we did. Jake Bauers. Jake Bauers is the overall home run pick of the day. Wanted to go Yankee given how well they were projecting for home run upside, but I didn't want to give you guys Aaron Judge, who has a ludicrous number on the board. 23.52 for Aaron Judge. 65 hundo, 4,000. Totally worthwhile. I know he's had a couple up and down games since coming back from the injury. When he first came back, Michael Kay was even saying this last night. When he first came back, he looked like he was right on. Timing wasn't really all that off, and everything was clicking. And it kind of seemed like it slipped a little bit. I don't know if like maybe the toe started to hurt when he makes swings or anything, but it looked a little bit more off the last couple of days. But it's Aaron Judge. I'm not going to sweat something like that and try and like overthink the situation, bake it into something. We've got a ton of power showing for the Yanks up at the top of the lineup. Billy McKinney's in the lineup like I was hoping for, but IKF is actually in there as well. Looks like no DJ LeMahieu in the lineup, and Ben Rortvedt in the lineup instead of Kyle Higashioka. That kind of sucks. These 2 spots are okay. These 5 spots are pretty good. It's basically what it boils down to for the Yanks. They're very, very cheap. The idea that you can get Gleyber Torres and Giancarlo Stanton for $3,000 apiece on FanDuel is kind of ludicrous. Those are just both 2 better players than that, with any given slate upside well beyond those prices. 18 homers, a 117 WRC plus for Torres is like the Yankees' second best player this season. Stanton at least has 17 homers in 258 plate appearances, a 254 ISO, 15.7% barrels, 48.8% hard hits. These are down from last year's marks, 19.2 and 52.1, but they're still very, 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 very good hard hit rates, barrel rates. Like Stanton, when he makes contact, still destroys the ball. So definitely believable home run mark for him, albeit at a very high number. Excellent value pricing for Torres and Stanton. McKinney for 2,100, 2,400 has believable lefty pop. 6 home runs in 118 plate appearances. He is definitely one of those quad A type guys. But against Touki Toussaint, we're talking about a quad A hitter against a quad A type pitcher. So plenty of upside for Billy McKinney here. Since you guys wanted to talk about it, Touki Toussaint, 21.6% strikeout rate is quite good. 3.92 ERA, very good. 4.80 xFIP, kind of slipping already. 15.3% walk rate. Ooh, that's dicey. Against the Yankees lineup that at least has Aaron Judge, who draws a 17.7% walk rate. Not to mention Gleyber at 9.3 and only a 13.5% strikeout rate. Jake Bauers, for all his strikeouts, does draw 10.4% walks. McKinney, 11% walks in a small sample. Okay strikeout rate, 24.6. Number of hitters, even IKF, 9% walks. Even Anthony Volpe, 9.1% walks for all his struggles. The fact that he's only getting on base at a 287 clip with a 9.1% walk rate is stupid. Come on, Volpe, pull your shit together. Drive me nuts. Yeah, I think the Yanks are playable here. Bader and Volpe are like inconsistent contributors, but everybody's cheap. 3,200, 3,000 on DK, 2,900, 2,600. Outfielder and a shortstop. They're very good bolt-on parts at the worst to an abundance of Yankee stacks. Top 4 is really where you want to be. A lot of action for the top 4. Bolt-on part, bolt-on parts. IKF for 2,300, 2,400, especially with triple position eligibility, definitely has to be mixed in to some FanDuel stacks. 2,300 in the outfield on DK. I would probably just take a couple additional shares of Billy McKinney. You do want to have 1 or 2 shares of IKF, but he's a very low-end hitter. 93 WRC plus, a 119 ISO, 9 steals, 250, 321, 369. Low-end hitter. Rortvedt's mostly here for defense behind the plate. White Sox bats against Clark Schmidt. I do think there's a little bit of play for them, primarily around Luis Robert, Eloy Jimenez, Andrew Vaughn. 30 home runs, 13 home runs, 15 home runs. Everybody else is kind of mix and match-ish. Elvis Andrus in the leadoff spot, so I guess Timmy started serving his suspension. Makes sense. As I wrote in the article, stories all started coming out over the last couple of days. Apparently he's been distanced from the team since the start of the season, moved his locker into the corner or whatever, and like I said in the article, would have information I could have really used in like April, March. Elvis Andrus is a very flawed option in the leadoff role. 294, a 70 WRC plus, 3 homers, 8 steals. You guys know I don't like Elvis Andrus. Andrew Benintendi has had a down season overall, 93 WRC plus after briefly getting above the waterline, so he immediately went back to being pretty shitty over the last couple of weeks. Lou Bob's got a ton of power. Jimenez has a ton of power. Jean Moncada has been a flawed hitter in the heart of the lineup there, but he's very cheap, 3,100, 2,400 if you want to build out a full White Sox stack. Just pop Moncada in it. Jasmani Grandal, 2,800, 2,300, a playable catcher, but a 91 WRC plus for him, 8 home runs on the season. Gavin Sheets, Zach Remillard. It's pretty low end. It's pretty low end. Like no wonder this White Sox lineup has underperformed all year. Schmidt has been okay. 21.8% strikeout rate, a 4.35 ERA, a 4.37 xFIP. Doesn't walk a ton of hitters at only 6.3%. A lot of short starts in there, kind of drive up the run numbers a little bit. But he's also given up a lot of premium contact. 8.4% barrels, 43.4% hard hits, a 3.38% home run rate, 90.2 miles an hour of exit velo. I just see this falling as more like you paid a fair price to get an average start where he gives up a couple of runs, handful of strikeouts, maybe he works you 5, maybe there's a win bonus involved, but it's really thin, and I don't think it hits the ceiling that a lot of other pitchers have. So very, very tepid interest in any Clark Schmidt. You can mix and match him into a few shares on DK. I don't think I would have any on FanDuel. So Yankees bats, enthusiastic yes, primarily around the top end. A lot of very good mix and match values all throughout the lineup. White Sox bats through the middle, and only through the middle really, with no real love for either end of the batting order. No interest in Tukey for me. 5,700, he's very cheap. He has that good strikeout day. You're off and running on the DK slate. I'll give him that. 65 on FanDuel. You want to look at his game log real quick? I know he has at a couple okay spots. Let's see. 5 1/3, 9 Ks, but 4 earned runs, 2 home runs allowed, and 4 walks against the Rangers at Texas the last time out. 5 innings pitched of clean baseball with 4 strikeouts, 19 batters faced against the Guardians the start before that. A relief inning against the Cubs worked in there. Lousy start against the Mets, gave up 5, struck out 3. 1 earned run in 5 1/3 against the Braves is like his standout start on the season, but struck out only 4 and walked 4 in that outing. 5 strikeouts in 5 innings against the Cards, 5 in 3 2/3, but allowed 2 earned runs against the Athletics, and then some low-end short starts as he got ramped up early in the season. Yeah, I think it's that Braves one that I'm kind of remembering, just being surprised that he limited the Braves so well. The 9 strikeouts the last time out, I guess, is something to target maybe against the Rangers, but that wasn't a good game. Not for DK purposes, anyway. Certainly not for FanDuel purposes. It's a low-end option, guys. I know the Yanks have been bad. Don't let the Yankees fan talking to you, talk you out of your Tukey Toussaint love, but in a vacuum, fandom out of the equation. I just don't really see it. I think there's just too much bad in with the lone good is an average strikeout rate at 21.6%. And there's a lot of bad in here. A lot of bad. This is okay. The premium contact's actually okay. But not against Aaron Judge. Like the fact that he can limit barrels, limit hard hits to some degree, gives up some home runs but not many, 4-degree average launch angle, that's fine. Last year in 25 1/3, that was a 9.9 degree average launch with a 1.85% home run rate. Year before, in 50 innings, he had a home run problem. 5.09% home runs on a 9.3% barrel rate, 11 degrees average launch, 48.6% hard hits. I think this is the realistic version of Tukey's contact profile in an extended sample. Not that this year is all that far off from that sample, but I just side with the Yanks. Call me a homer. Call me what you will. Just, it plays through the model. So really, I side with the model, not with the Yankees. So Yanks, it's like Yanks way down here, Clark Schmidt, and White Sox bats kind of together, and then another tier down Tukey, in my opinion. Giants, Angels. Do we have any lineups? We don't. Oh, the Brewers lineup dropped. Yelich, Contreras, Mark Canha hitting third, Tyrone Taylor cleanup. All right. We're taking a look at this. Let's put the brakes on. All right, we're going to take a look at this Brewers lineup, and then we're going to make good time through the last 4 games of this slate. Okay, so as Mamba says, Weimer batting up. I love this lineup. Milwaukee, best stack of the slate. It's a very good stacking opportunity. They're very cheap. I do agree with that. I really like the spot 6th for Joey Weimer. Mark Canha hitting third is kind of interesting. You get no Willy Adames. Tyrone Taylor hitting cleanup is definitely interesting. Very, very cheap options hitting third and fourth in that lineup. 4 home runs on the season and 104 plate appearances for Taylor. 6 steals, like I mentioned yesterday. 17 homers and 405 last year. 12 homers and 271 the year before. He's a guy I like to go to when he sneaks into the lineup for some sneaky home run upside late in the lineup. Given that he's hitting cleanup in what's probably going to be a pretty popular stack, he might get aggressively overowned. That's an interesting spot now. Monasterio hitting 5th has been productive with a 101 WRC plus and 154. The triple position eligibility from a 5th hitter in the lineup is nice. 2,300 on DK. There's probably better third baseman in your life. Brian Anderson's not the answer, but on another team, there's probably a better third baseman. So maybe you use some of the other Brewers for value options. You get yourself to a nice, expensive third baseman instead of Andrew Monasterio. But there are definitely some interesting mix and match plays. Victor Caratini, 2,700, a stout, hard-hitting catcher when he plays. 5 home runs and 160 plate appearances. 49.1% hard hits on the season. You get him and Contreras, so you get some decision point around catcher. Kind of interesting here. Yelich, 5,100, 3,700. As Mamba points out, you get him basically for free because of how all these other guys just average his price right down. So, like, if you just wanted to take these 2 hitters, let's just take the straight line off the top, right? Yelich, Contreras, Kana, Taylor, and then we'll skip Monasterio and go to Joey Wiemer. So that stack on DK is an average of 3,480, 17,400 total spend. Pretty good. If you wanted to work in like Caratini instead of Contreras to get even more sneaky and cheap, you go like Yelich, Kana, Taylor, Wiemer, Caratini. 3,060 average price. 15,300 total spend for the 5-man. That's a killer value opportunity on DK. No Santana either. Thank you, Larry. I forget. Yeah, I knew there was somebody else lurking there that I couldn't put my thumb on, but I appreciate the shout out. Yeah, that's a downgrade for the power upside for sure, given taking Santana and Willy Adames out of the lineup. But there's probably some, that makes them a little bit better, I think, in terms of some of like the, not necessarily shining through in the numbers, but like the guys who have decent hit tools, the guys who can get on base, steal your bases, like they do more interesting things than Willy Adames in a lot of ways, like Joey Wiemer, Tyrone Taylor. Interesting lineup for this team. I kind of hope that it goes by the wayside on a lot of other places where people just say like, oh, Mark Canha, Tyrone Taylor, Monasterio, Wiemer, like who are these guys? I don't want to play them. That would really serve our purposes pretty well with this team. It's an excellent source of value, if nothing else. All right, let's pick this thing back up here. Back to the Giants and the Angels. Oh, Michael Knack. Thank you. Michael Knack says, nobody breaks down MLB like Terry. Makes still class. Nobody breaks down an MLB slate like Terry. I appreciate that, buddy. Thank you, Michael Knack. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you like the breakdown here, if you agree with Michael Knack, or if you don't, whether or not you think that there are clowns in other places. I appreciate it. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe if you haven't. Hop into the free Discord if you haven't. There's free content up on the website, which is rotoscouts. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, follow the Twitter handle at rotoscouts. Let's get some followers on there. Like and retweet anything that I send out on there. I always link the different pieces of content from there, so it's a good way for you guys to find the content quickly and easily. And then it's a good, it helps me out, just getting the word out, and that's how those viral things build and so on and so forth. You guys know how social media works better than I do. Larry says Terry almost did a Ron Burgundy. Speaking of which, did you guys see that in the game yesterday? We were talking to Fernando Tatis, and he apparently has never seen Anchorman. Playing in San Diego, like they had one of those things where he was mic'd up while in the outfield, and he was like, yeah, no, I don't know. And then they started explaining the way the guy described the movie Anchorman. He was like, it's a movie about newscasters in the San Diego area. He made it sound like almost a serious movie, like broadcast news or something. Like that's what I would have guessed right out of the gate if he was describing it to me. I would have outside of San Diego. And I'm like, oh, broadcast news, the Jim Brooks movie, really good movie by the way. If you guys haven't seen it, which you probably haven't. I also dropped a lot of, man, we're way off track here. William Friedkin died. I dropped a lot of movie recommendations of his from his filmography. One of a kind, great filmmaker. The French Connection, The Exorcist, Sorcerer, later in life Blue Chips, which a lot of people I'm sure are familiar with. So just some killer content going around movie wise. Totally lost my train of thought. Anyway, let's get back on track. Alex Wood as a follower. I think he's kind of unreliable here. 18.8% strikeout rate, 11.3% walks, a 4.83 ERA, a 5.30 xFIP, 5,400, 6,300, acting as a follower behind Scott Alexander. I just think the innings are a little bit questionable. The performance has been a little bit shaky. If you're inclined to throw cheap value darts at followers, maybe you could get away with it on DK for 54. I don't really like it at 63 on FanDuel, and I don't really like throwing him against the Angels here. I just think there's too many very good right-handed power hitters in this lineup. Luis Rengifo's good for righty power when he's facing a lefty, 4,200, 2,600, triple position eligible on the FanDuel slate. Shohei Ohtani, obviously we don't sweat the lefty, 6,700, 4,600. If you can afford him, play him. Brandon Drury, CJ Cron, Randall Grichuk, Hunter Renfroe, all very realistic, premium right-handed power. Eduardo Escobar, switch hitter, 3,100, 2,300, multi-position eligible. Down season overall, but a capable power bat over time. Like just last year, Eduardo Escobar hit 20 home runs in 542 plate appearances. He hit 28 in 599 the year before. Capable power bat late in the lineup for cheap prices. Chad Wallach, a reasonably capable power bat at catcher, 7 home runs in 138 plate appearances as a right-handed catcher, 11.4% barrels. So I think the Angels are stackable against the Giants pitching situation here. I think it's definitely a spot to go to. Not a premium option. Let's see where they rank on the stacks board, actually, before I say that. Actually, a little bit more premium than I thought. With everything geared against the Wood opportunity, 6th overall by projection, 5th by FanDuel points per dollar, 11th by DK points per dollar, and 9th for home runs. So at least a sturdy mid-range option with upside. A lot of cheap prices here. So the Angels are definitely on the stacking board for me. Then Lucas Giolito, 9,900, 8,100, projects out very well here. Going up against a Giants lineup that we've seen worse pitchers succeed against in recent games. There's definitely lefty power to be concerned with. He's given up a lot of power this year, 11.1% barrels, 89.7 miles an hour exit velo, a 4.53% home run rate. We've obviously got to fade Jock Peterson, Michael Conforto, Brandon Crawford to a degree, Lamont Wade to a degree, the good righties in Thairo Estrada, Wilmer Flores, J.D. Davis. It's a good lineup, but they're a good lineup filled with a lot of mid-range caliber players. They lack star power. That's why they're all cheap. So I think they're an effective enough value stack that you can play a few shares of against Giolito, but I actually prefer the Giolito side for cheap pricing, especially on FanDuel. 8,100 is very, very cheap for Lucas Giolito. That makes me not really care about the contact and the home run problems this year. It makes me kind of focus in more on the 25% strikeout rate, decent swinging strike rate, a high but okay xFIP and ERA that are in line with one another. Last year, 4.90 ERA, so a little higher on the ERA, but a better xFIP at 3.66. Similar strikeout rate, 27.9, down a couple points of strikeouts from 2 years ago, but and was very good at limiting premium contact anyway, if not home runs. So I think it's just a few minor blips for Giolito. Otherwise, he's pitching a lot like Lucas Giolito. You're going to run into some contact. You're going to run into some trouble spots. But I think there's plenty of upside for Giolito in this spot. So I'll go to him. I will take a few hedge positions with Giants bats, primarily around those lefties and a couple good righties. So Lamont Wade's in play for very cheap off the top of the lineup. 4,100, 2,800. His power cooled, but he hit 2 recently. He went from 9 that he was stuck on for quite a while to 11. Still gets on base at a 398 clip. Creating runs 32% better than average. Decent contact profile. Just very cheap at first base to start off the lineup. Thairo Estrada, Wilmer Flores, and J.D. Davis are all capable right-handed bats against the righty. Davis has been better against righties than lefties on the season. 15 home runs. He's cooled off in a lot of ways, though. Down to 259, 338, 435 overall. 12% better than average creating runs, but not a great spot for J.D. Davis. Wilmer, as I mentioned earlier, one of the top on OPS options over the last month or so. Triple position eligible for 2,800 on FanDuel. First base only for 3,600. That kind of sucks on DK. Should always get at least one other infield position for Wilmer. But 14 home runs on the season at 233 ISO. He's very good when he's in the lineup. Jock Peterson, tons of realistic left-handed power. 8.29 in the home run model, 11 on the season in 277 plate appearances. Conforto's got 13 in 378, 6.62 in the home run model. So mix and match parts for the Giants. Like top 6 is pretty good. Couple mix-ins down here if you're building a bunch of Giant stacks, but the priorities are top 6. But I prefer the Giolito side. So this one for me was a no Giants pitching. Probably Giolito, Angels bats, minor hedge position with Giants bats in the third spot. Padres, Mariners. Mariners lineup is in. No real interest in Nick Martinez here. Made some starts early in the season, but has been pitching entirely out of the bullpen. And I doubt he's going to see more than 2 innings, maybe 3. I think his ceiling is 3 innings. He's been pitching like he's been having multi-inning appearances out of the pen. But it's not a premium spot. We're talking about 2 innings last time out, 3 innings the time before that. And then a long stretch of only 1 inning appearances through July, back to July 16th. He went 2 on July 16th. None of this feeds anything about how deep he's going to pitch other than to say he's going to be limited. So I don't think we go to Nick Martinez at all. 7,200 is wildly mispriced on DK. 5,600, I don't think you get any kind of value out of him on the FanDuel slate. He does have a 22.1% strikeout rate, a 3.68 ERA, 3.91 xFIP, only allowing 2.99% home runs on 85 miles an hour of exit velo and a 29.7% hard hit rate. Those are spectacular. The hard hits and the exit velo are terrific numbers. Maybe he has a limiting impact. Maybe he finds a few strikeouts, but we're just not going to see him long enough. So I think it's just a bullpen mix and match your way through type game for the Padres, where we don't roster any of the pitching. Maybe it keeps the Mariners down a little bit in terms of their ability to hit home runs. That's about all they do well. They strike out way too much. They don't sequence great. Not a great option. I think they're on the board a little bit for the idea of power, but he's been limiting power. J.P. Crawford, Julio Rodriguez, Eugenio Suarez, Cal Raleigh, Teoscar Hernandez, all these guys have power. Crawford gets on base at a decent clip ahead of those guys as a correlated scoring play. Then you get all these hefty strikeouts, 26, 29, 27, 31. So that 4-man unit averages a 28.8% strikeout rate. That's not good. 18, 16, 18, 17 homers. A lot of homers. Good power output. Decent run creation marks. Julio's at 18 homers, 27 steals, looking a lot more like the Julio we knew from last year. 59, 38. You're paying a premium for him. You're paying for last year's performance, so he'd better be performing like it. Only a 112 WRC plus, where he was at I think 140 something last year, 146 last year, 28 homers, 25 steals last year. So he's already above the stolen base mark. He'll probably get around the home run mark. 10 more homers might be a stretch, but 6 to 8 might be is probably realistic. Suarez is a flawed hitter. Cal Raleigh's a flawed hitter. Teoscar's a flawed hitter, but they're all affordable. They've all got realistic power upside. Ty France, bad year. Overall a good hitter with a little mid-range power, but hasn't done much at the plate at all this season. 101 WRC plus is fine, but 251, 325, 372, only 8 homers. Dominic Canzone for cheap, mix and match piece in the outfield. Dylan Moore, kind of a mix and infielder. And then Tommy Murphy buried at the bottom of the lineup. 3,200, 2,600. Massive power appeal from the right side. 15.3% barrel rate, 45.9% hard hits, 8 homers and 151 plate appearances. Also is putting up a decent triple slash this year. 297, 340, 558 in that small sample. That's really unexpected. 148 WRC plus from him. 2 years ago in a more complete sample anyway, 325 plate appearances, 11 home runs, was a 202, 304, 350 hitter. That's why I said the triple slash this year is kind of surprising in the small sample. Tommy Murphy's here for power behind the plate, but a good power option. Probably going to be low owned and sneaky down the bottom of the lineup. Padres going up against Gilbert. I think they're kind of interesting. They project out pretty well. 3rd overall on the board, driven obviously by some of the star power. 5th overall for home runs. Not great in terms of the points per dollar value. Again, because of all the star power and because of all the points coming around those stars. Low-end projections for guys like Jake Cronenworth, like Trent Grisham, like G-Man Choi toward the bottom of the lineup. Although I do think that Choi is a little bit playable for some realistic power output. 6 home runs and 87 plate appearances this season, a 272 ISO, 22.6% hard hits, 22.6% barrels, 58.5% hard hits. Got himself traded from the Pirates to a better situation. We'll see if he delivers anything, but realistic left-handed power from him, if nothing else, for 2,300, 2,500. Gary Sanchez at the bottom of the lineup, 15 home runs and 202 plate appearances. One of the best power hitting catchers in the game, 4,000, 2,900, 14.8% barrels. I don't worry about anything else with Gary. As long as he makes contact, I have faith that he's going to be hitting home runs. Should never have lost his major league job, is a major league catcher. Or, well, more of a major league DH, but can catch the ball behind the plate, more of a major league DH and a hitter, but a major league caliber bat, major league caliber power hitter, belongs in lineups.
Top of the batting order, obviously buried the more important part of this batting order, but it's kind of obvious, right? Ha-Seong Kim's been outrageous this season, 35% better than average, 15 homers, 24 steals. Just a season of excellence from him. Still triple position eligible for 3,300 on the FanDuel slate. Only second base for 49 on DK, a little bit less valuable over there, but an excellent piece at the top of the lineup. Fernando Tatis, who doesn't know quotes from Anchorman, 19 homers, 17 stolen bases. At least they didn't come on air and say fuck you, Fernando, expecting him to get the joke. And he's never seen Anchorman, and he was like, what? But it's weird that he's never seen it. He was 5 when the movie came out, so I get it. But that's a movie that's been endlessly quoted over the last, I don't feel like Anchorman's really lost any cultural cachet over the last 20 years. Juan Soto, 6,200, 4,000. Their best hitter overall, including Fernando Tatis. 24 homers, 419 on base percentage, 58% better than average, creating runs, a 247 ISO, 20% walk rate, 13.5% barrels, 57.9% hard hits, 4,000, 6,200. He's fairly priced, same price as Tatis on the FanDuel slate, $100 discount from Tatis on the DK slate. Manny, heart of the lineup, 21 home runs, looking a lot more like Manny Machado, 56-33, fair price, 255, 316, 458, a 111 WRC plus. He's been excellent through most of the season after a slow start. Bogart's underperforming this season, but he's very cheap for his talent. We know that he's a better player than 265, 340, 390. Still above the waterline for run creation, 11 homers, 12 steals. Interesting enough, not a decision point with Ha-Seong Kim, but maybe you go in an either-or sense in a lot of lineups between those two guys and then try and grab one of the power bats as your fifth man in on DK. On FanDuel, you can just mix and match to your heart's content because it's shortstop and then triple position eligible. You can obviously play 2 shortstops if you wanted to. If you wanted to look at it that way, it doesn't really matter over there. So no interest in Padres pitching. Logan Gilbert, I do want to mention, I do think he is on the board, despite the fact that I like the Padres here and plan to roster them. Gilbert's a very, very good pitcher. 9,500 is just a little bit pricey for a mid-range projection on the FanDuel slate. 8,700, a little bit better looking on the DK slate. But I think he's got a ceiling beyond this. 23.9% strikeout rate is pretty good. 3.86 ERA, 3.79 xFIP, only a 1.07 whip, never gets himself in trouble. A sterling 4.5% walk rate. Good swinging strike rate. He's given up a little bit of premium contact and a little bit of power. I think this feeds a little bit of expectation around the premium hitters here. So this isn't great in combination with these guys. But he's definitely got ability. He's definitely got upside. He is in my pitching pool. I'll have some for the money on FanDuel. I would have more for the money on the DK slate. Viable pitcher. Viable pitcher in a bad matchup. Zach Porter said, Milk was a bad choice. Chuck says, damn, Terry's boy Andrews is leading off. I love it. Cycle for Andrews today, or at least 2 bombs. Probably, right? Mamba says Blue Chips is one of his favorite movies of all time. Shaq and Nick Nolte. And Penny Hardaway. And that big doofy white dude. He wasn't actually an NBA. I'm sure he was a college player, but I don't remember who he was. Was he an NBA player? Damn it. It's almost 6 o'clock and I'm looking up the cast of Blue Chips. The hell is he? Matt Nover played Ricky Rowe. Matt Nover played for CB Polaris World Marica in the Liga ACB and for the Sydney Kings in the Australian Basketball League. 52 years old now. God damn. Ed O'Neill's in that movie. Robert Wool. JT Walsh. Larry Bird. Bobby Knight. Great basketball movie if you haven't seen it. Endless basketball cast. Dick Vitale. Rick Fox. Bobby Hurley. Allen Houston. It was really good basketball scenes in that movie because freaking went out and got a cast full of like all the secondary teams that they were playing against were all loaded with like college players, professional players and stuff. So it was like real hardcore basketball, a lot of wide shots, really, really well-made movie. Anyway, Dennis Forgy says Eric Lindquist is too young to be in Blue Chips. You said big goofy white dude. Tell Eric we say hi if you guys talk to him. I love Eric. Good guy. So the Padres, Logan Gilbert, no interest in Padres pitching, and then some shares of Mariner stacks, but kind of low end. They don't project well at all. All right, let's hit the gas pedal. JP Sears, somebody mentioned him at the top of the show. 7,300, 7,400, 22.2% strikeout rate, pitching fairly well overall with a 4.07 ERA. The spot where I get concerned is around that 5.10 xFIP for JP Sears, and then all this premium contact going up against the Texas Rangers. That's where we run into some trouble. 4.99% home runs, 12.6% barrels. It's just way too much premium contact to throw at a team like the Rangers. We've had success with Sears in other spots. He projects okay for the money. I think a couple value darts are all right, but I wouldn't make him my priority value play of the day on either side. I have a little faith in the talent, but it's just an awful matchup going up against the Rangers here for him. Texas lineup, I think, is very much in play, given all the premium contact that Sears is allowing. Marcus Semien, Corey Seager, Nathaniel Lowe, Adolis Garcia. Even without Josh Young in the lineup, we'll get Mitch Garver maybe climbing the lineup, maybe Ezekiel Duran climbing the lineup. Any combination of the top end, top 5, top 6, depending on how it falls, is very much still in play for Texas, even without Josh Young. Seager's been a superstar when he's been in the lineup. 320 plate appearances, excellent triple slash. A WRC plus that is only rivaled by Shohei Ohtani and Ronald Acuna in a smaller sample than those two players, obviously. Nathaniel Lowe remains very, very cheap despite a 280, 374, 448, 30% better than average creating runs, 13 homers, 71 runs scored as a correlated scoring play with these guys. I don't really get why he's still so cheap, but I just take the discount when I build Texas stacks. Adolis Garcia is a star player, 29 homers, 7 steals, 38% better than average creating runs. Tons of pop, 266 ISO, 16.5% barrels, 5,500, 4,100. You're paying for him, but he is well worth those prices. And then you get all these guys to help you average down any kind of cost concerns. Jonathan Ornelas, I mentioned yesterday, a little bit of a track record through the minors. Second base, 2,000 on the DK slate. Third base, 2,200 on the FanDuel slate. Couple bullets if you're building a bunch of Rangers stacks is definitely in play. Duran's been excellent regardless of where he hits in the lineup. He's in play for very cheap prices given all his quality. He was a player that we were expecting to show something at some point in his career, and he landed pretty well this season in Seager's absence initially, and then he won a full-time role, and he's been not relented. 278, 323, 477, 18% better than average creating runs, 14 homers, 6 steals. Just excellent option. Leody Taveras has been productive, has slid a little bit in recent weeks, but still a productive option at the bottom of the lineup. Texas stacks basically up and down. Robbie Grossman, playable part for 24-25 if you get him. Jankowski's a playable part if you get him. Probably not against a lefty, but who knows what they do. I don't think they'll be overly intimidated by JP Sears here. Mitch Garver in place of Jonah Heim has tons and tons, basically the same kind of power upside as Jonah Heim would give you. So just take shares of Mitch Garver. Excellent barrel rate, excellent hard hit rate, 7 home runs and 159 plate appearances. Texas up and down, easy to go to. Max Scherzer, dominating the top of the board, dominating everybody's top of the board. Most popular pitcher, I'm sure, on all sites. Was pushing like 50% ownership on DK last I saw. Major potential against the Oakland Athletics. We don't really worry about Max's struggles this year. He has a 4.04 ERA, a 4.01 xFIP. He's giving up a 4.89% home run rate on 9.5% barrels, but he's going up against the Oakland A's. If anybody's going to succeed against the Oakland A's, or if there's any team that Max is going to succeed against, it is the Oakland A's. There is minor outlier, like Pirates getting to Spencer Strider yesterday, kind of outlier potential here. If you want to go to athletic stacks, assuming it's, here's the confirmed version of the lineup. I think it's largely the same. You do have Brent Rooker in it. Let's get through this quickly. If you want to go to athletic stacks, Tony Kemp is a terrible leadoff hitter. He's a lefty. I guess that's why he's there. JJ Bleday, a flawed hitter, hitting second. He's a lefty. 8 home runs, a 156 ISO, 94 WRC plus, floating around the Mendoza line. Zach Geloff, 4,800, 3,700, has been really productive in 84 plate appearances. He's a righty, but a cheap enough second baseman. The prices are up a little bit, but his contact's been there. He's got 5 home runs and 6 steals in that tiny sample. So at least an interesting part. Seth Brown, a lefty power hitter. He's a realistic point. So like start with Geloff, include Seth Brown, include Tyler Soderstrom, maybe some Jordan Diaz and some Brent Rooker. That's about it. It's really here through here. Soderstrom is their premium rookie, 2,900, 2,400 as a cheap catcher, 59 plate appearances in his major league career, 1 home run. You're throwing him up against Max Scherzer. Jordan Diaz, 161 plate appearances, 8 home runs, a 106 WRC plus. You're throwing him against Max Scherzer. Brent Rooker is not good. 18 homers. Most of them came before May 1st. 3,500, 2,800 looks like a strikeout target to Max to me, But if he gets 4 plate appearances against Max or 3, since he's at the bottom of the lineup, maybe he strikes out twice and hits one of the warning track for you. I don't like Brent Rooker at all. Nick Allen is here for defense. Esteury Ruiz is here for speed. He should be hitting the leadoff spot, but he's not. It's a bad team. It's a bad lineup. It's a bad version of their lineup. Fire away with Max as much as you want, as much or as little of Max as you want relative to the field. It might go bust. Spencer Strider went bust yesterday. These things happen, but top play on the board for a pitcher. Rangers bats, yes. Max Scherzer enthusiastic, yes. Athletics bats, no. JP Sears, minor dart throw in a very bad spot. Last game of the day. Okay. Yeah, the Dodgers hiding at the end of the slate. The best opportunity probably for offense on the entire board. I mentioned at the top of the show how they come out first overall in projections, first or second for points per dollar value, second overall for home run potential. You're going up against Brandon Pfaadt, who has a 7.1% home run rate. So basically double a bad home run rate. Over 44 and a third innings, 9 starts, 11.8% barrels allowed, 45.1% hard hits, 90.8 miles an hour of exit velo. Going up against the Los Angeles Dodgers, I think we can kind of expect a short start here from Mr. Pfaadt. Just not great. 5.30 implied run total. That feels a little bit low to me, given all the premium contact, all the terribleness in a 7.11 ERA and a 4.91 xFIP, only 19% strikeouts. On the other side, pitcher-wise, Julio Urias, 91-85. He projects out okay. He's one of those like mid-board type guys. Projects out okay for the money, but not great. And he's going up against a low strikeout, good Diamondbacks lineup. I don't necessarily think he's cheap enough. A few $100 cheaper on either side, he'd be more playable. He's an option. He won't be out of the pitching pool. He won't be off the board. 22.8% strikeouts, doesn't really walk anybody. A 4.69 ERA, though, this year, a 4.31 xFIP, giving up a 4.46% home run rate on only 32% hard hits, which is a weird combo. I just see it more playing toward the Diamondbacks hitter's favor. I think he's obviously the more playable of these two pitchers. Brandon Pfaadt is not playable. Do not throw Brandon Pfaadt against the Dodgers. 6,200 on both sides. It's a non-option. Non-option. Dodgers all the way. Whatever form of the lineup that the lineup takes, really. Mookie, Freddie, Will, Max Muncy, JD Martinez in the top 5. Amazing power potential. They're all very expensive. Tons and tons of home runs on the season. Tons of run creation. I don't need to sell anybody any of those hitters, I don't think. Like JD Martinez at a 12.81 in the home run model. Max at a 13.80. 4 of those 5 guys above the magic number for home runs, and the other is Will Smith, one of the better hard-hitting catchers in all of baseball. David Peralta, Jason Hayward, and James Outman, the 3 lefties that we like a lot at cheap prices in the outfield for this team. All in the projected lineup. They're all playable. Any combination of any of those 3 hitters with the top of the lineup is playable. You've got 7 home runs on the board with a 276, 308, 415 for Peralta. 11 homers for Hayward with an excellent ISO, 224, 119 WRC plus, and 253. Outman has the most playing time out of the bunch, 383 plate appearances, 13 homers, 13 steals, a 121 WRC plus. And then you get Ahmed Rosario lurking in the middle infield. 4,000 on DK, 2,800 on FanDuel. Playable part at worst. 5 home runs, 10 steals. Upside for more than that. The batting averages come around a little bit. On base needs to get a lot better. Run output needs to get better. Only 89 WRC plus, but playing on Cleveland most of the year will hurt you a little bit in that department. He's very cheap, multi-position eligible on DK in the middle infield. I like that a lot. Ketel Marte, Corbin Carroll, Tommy Pham, Christian Walker, Lourdes Gurriel, all those guys are playable off the top for against Urias. Not the greatest opportunity in the world going back the other way against Urias. This is one where I kind of think that their good bats and his talent on the mound kind of level one another off, where it'll probably be a handful of runs scored. He strikes out a few, has an okay game, but not a great DFS game. They have an okay game, not a great DFS game. The number of times, if we roll this 100 times, that the Diamondbacks absolutely light up Julio Urias and become a must-have stack here are probably few and far between. I think you can go to a few shares, particularly with those top-end guys. Marte is one of the top second basemen in the game. Corbin Carroll's been great, although his power has dipped a little bit in recent games. Still 36 steals on the year, 21 home runs, 35% better than average creating runs. Pham is a very cheap outfielder for his talent. 10 home runs, 13 steals on the season. Got himself traded out of the Mets. Christian Walker, an excellent power bat. He's too cheap at 5,000, 3,400 on both sites. 23 homers this year, 248 ISO, doesn't strike out. Lourdes Gurriel, his triple slash has fallen apart, but his power's still there. He doesn't strike out either. 16.3% strikeout rate, 18 homers at 216 ISO, still above the waterline for run creation. Bottom of the lineup is mix and match plays. Decent hit tool for Emmanuel Rivera. Good speed for Jake McCarthy, both below average for run creation, but like respectably so in the high 80s. And then it kind of falls off with Nick Ahmed and Carson Kelly. So maybe it's a 7-man Diamondbacks lineup. Doesn't really push the appeal for Julio Urias. I think I prefer Urias to the Diamondbacks, but like I said, I think that kind of levels off. So to wrap this one up, Dodgers with a bullet. Enthusiastic yes against Brandon Pfaadt. And then like Julio Urias and the Diamondbacks basically tied on a tier of just kind of averagishness. If they mix and match their way into a few lineups, I won't take it out. But I'm not over the moon about either one of those spots. No interest in Brandon Pfaadt. Let's do a very quick look at the pitching board. It's 6:09. Yowza. Just looking at the chat real quick. LA Dynam's basically the same, one minor difference that it come out. What was the minor difference? Ahmed Rosario hitting 9th. So a stretch of 6, 7, 8, Peralta, Hayward, and Outman, all three of those lefties. I like that quite a bit. And then you get Rosario as an effective wraparound play given his speed potential ahead of Betts, Freeman, Smith, Muncy, Martinez. Killer lineup for the Dodgers. All right, so Max Scherzer, there are minor concerns about the lack of output overall on the season. Some of the power he's given up this season, but he's facing the Oakland A's. Even at price, he's my number one. I believe in that projection wholeheartedly. It's a spot we've been attacking with way worse pitchers over the entire year. I have no issues throwing a ton of Max at the Athletics. I will definitely have a good amount of Framber Valdez going up against the Orioles, even for price. I think he's spectacular. One of my favorite options on any given slate. I do think Giolito's got plenty of potential, especially at the $8,100 price. I believe in the projection. There's strikeout upside. He could get got by the decent Giants. There's definitely potential for them to come back the other way against him. I like him less than these two options, and I think some of these value options, given the price discrepancy, are a little bit interesting as well in conjunction with Giolito, potentially more so than his price on the DK slate at 99. Yusei Kikuchi, a lot of danger in terms of the home run downside and the limitations of strikeouts by the Guardians lineup, but still projects out really well for the money. I think it's a very good play. On the other side of that same game, Tanner Bybee, similar opportunity to what Gav Williams did yesterday, maybe a lower strikeout ceiling than 12, obviously, but a very good young pitcher going up against that lineup in a similar spot. I like the opportunity for Bybee. He projects well. Wade Miley, lefty against Colorado. There should be like a red blaring, like a ooga type alarm going off behind me when I talk about this play. 7,000 on the DK slate, 8,300 on the FanDuel slate. 26-point projection projects out pretty well. All the reason in the world they'll believe in it with how bad the Rockies have been against lefties all season long. 30+% strikeout rate. I think it was 31+% strikeout rate against lefties. 50-something WRC plus against lefties this season. I think we go to Wade Miley here. I'm not at all comfortable with it. I'm not comfortable telling you guys to do it, but I think it's justified given the price and given the projection. Logan Gilbert against the Padres, a lot of danger in that top of the Padres lineup, but he's an excellent pitcher. I think you can absolutely go to some mid-range options around Logan Gilbert here. Less so with Mitch Keller against the Braves. I actually prefer Urias against the Diamondbacks, but I just talked about the limiting effect on both sides for that one. JP Sears does at least have that mid-board projection for the 73-74. I do not like the matchup for him at all going up against Texas. I think I would rather pay less for Grayson Rodriguez going up against an equally good Houston team. Just because it's a lower price for similar potential. Grayson Rodriguez is a better pitcher on talent than JP Sears. The matchup is similar. The price is better. They project out almost the same. Crawford against KC. That'll be an interesting spot to watch the ownership, him and Miley going back and forth. Definitely on the board for value-based pricing against Kansas City. I don't like the hitting environment. I respect the pitcher as a mid-range, like league average-ish type talent. I do think he's got a ceiling against Kansas City, but it's a lousy hitting environment. A lousy pitching environment, rather. Clark Schmidt, probably the last man in for me against the White Sox. Low-end projection, low-end pitcher, 7,200, 7,100. You're not paying very much to get to him against the scuffling White Sox lineup, and a bad version at that of a scuffling White Sox lineup. So maybe Schmidt's got a little bit of potential as a dart throw here. No Freeland, no Taillon, no Carrasco, no Tukey for me. no Nick Martinez, no Giants opener follower situation, no Brady Singer against the Red Sox, no Chirinos, and certainly no Brandon Pfaadt. Guys, that is it. Top to bottom, left, right, and center. 6:15 coming up on the slate. 2 hours right about on the nose. 58 watching, hanging in here for the end of the long show. 56 likes. I love that. I love the turnout that you guys have had over the course of time for me. It's been awesome. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe. Follow at rotoscouts on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it if you're still there. My personal handle on there is at digitalbeat21. But let's build up the Rotoscouts one a little bit if you guys don't mind. Hop into the free Discord. Check out rotoscouts.com for all kinds of free content. And enjoy Crystal Light iced tea. Because Crystal Light, I believe in me. I don't know. I don't remember how their old tagline went. I believe in Crystal Light because I believe in me. I think that was it. I believe in me. I don't necessarily believe in Crystal Light, but I drink it because it's not bad for you outside of that aspartame thing. And it's delicious. And it's cold. And I need to take a sip and say goodbye to everybody. I'm going to put my cup down. I'm going to say goodbye to you guys. Somebody go win something. Good luck tonight. Go get 'em, gang. I'm hitting the end button. Goodbye.